Gather around the table today for a very important matter. The greatest news team has now formed. Three Musketeers.
Three Musketeers. Oh, we're in. We're in.
We're kind of rolling. We're
do it.
easing into it, Dan. We're easing into it. But obviously we're here to discuss the great book that is 12 Rules for Life.
12 Rules for Life.
By Jordan
And
Peterson.
it is a great book, to be fair.
It is.
Have you actually read it?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were just the token invitation today.
No, I'm just like dressed for occasion.
Okay.
I've read the book.
You pass, man. You pass. It's all good. But yeah, so we're going to read the book, or we're going to read the book. We're going to discuss the book. So how it's going to go is we've each picked a chapter from the book, that kind of, I suppose, caught our eye or drew us in regards to interest, and we're going to discuss it bit by bit. Was it long ago you read the book?
I think I read the book 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah, and I read it cover to cover. It's a hard read now.
It is.
It's not that it's, when I say it's a hard read, every chapter, every page is like you have to be present, and like I had to reread pages over and over and over again. Do you know why sometimes you're reading a book and you're like, oh, I kind of get what that you can't do that with Peterson. Like I had to go back and I had to read the page again.
What I do with books in general is I highlight stuff and I always go back. And then like I found obviously with Peterson, I had to like really go back and highlight. Like I do that anyway with books. Would you not do that?
I do. Do you go back? I think actually that's my copy there. I'm fairly sure if you open that, there probably highlights all over it. But if I highlight it, either I don't go back and read the highlights, or else the whole book is highlighted. So may as well not have highlighted anything. It's just fucking yellow. The whole thing is yellow.
Okay.
This is my one, is it? Let's see if I have.
Nothing is highlighted.
Okay, well, look, there's fucking highlights. Look, highlight.
There you go, Brian.
No, but I found Jamie with that book, I had to go back.
Underlined. I don't know what underline means, but
yeah.
You know, I don't like the look of underlining. I refuse to do it. I have to highlight.
Okay.
And it has to be a particular colour. I don't like yellow either. It has to be like.
Anyway, let's move on.
Move on.
Brian, maybe move that drink to one side there. I'm joking. But yeah, like I was saying, we picked a chapter each, and it was interesting enough to kind of revisit the book once again, because I suppose you learn something that you haven't learned before. Even though you're rereading it, you're going over parts of it before that maybe you didn't pick up on.
Yeah, 100%.
Before. I suppose first thing to go around the table is discuss which chapter we've picked. I went with chapter 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back.
I knew you were going to go for that as well. When you
Why,
suggested this, because it's literally James Hempton in a fucking line. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. This is everything about James in that line. I went for rule number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.
Is that kind of confrontational?
It's very confrontational. We're going to have a chat about that.
I went with rule 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any particular reason?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned off podcast, recent kind of burnout for me. And even that chapter in general, though, I really like. And it resonated because I burnt myself out previously. And there's still lessons to be learned for me, clearly, to make sure that I'm integrating it. But yeah, I think actually, out of all the chapters, that was for me the most profound one.
Yeah. And for you, Dan, was that the one that kind of stuck out for you as well?
No, I thought a lot about this because I like your chapter, and you had already picked it, so I was like, well, I won't pick that. And there's a few other chapters that initially, when I read the book, really jumped out at me. But over the last, I suppose I'm a father now as well, which has kind of changed things. And over the last maybe year, I've been having this particular conversation a lot with people, and it's come up a lot because there's some, I don't like using the word controversy, but there's a lot of conversation around this particular one.
Definitely.
In different circles, and there's a lot of negative conversation around this as well. So it's like, this would be an interesting one just to explore. It wasn't one that jumped out straight away, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, that's one. I think that'll be an interesting conversation, rather than me just say, oh, I liked this one, and not that that's what you guys did. That's not what I'm suggesting here, but rather than me pick one that was like immediately, oh yeah, I picked one that was a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. And I think there is a small bit of controversy to it as well.
Yeah.
It's an interesting chapter. But let's kick it off. Chapter one. I had to go with it, Dan. I had to go with it. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. And just the reason for the interest in that chapter for me in particular was the importance of posture. I'm just fascinated by posture. And in that chapter in particular, Jordan Peterson talks about the lobsters. The lobsters who have been around a lot longer than us. I think, I could be misquoting them here, but 350 million years before us. They've been around since even before the dinosaurs. And that's if you believe in dinosaurs now. But they've been around for quite a while. And obviously they've a similar nervous system to ourselves and the neurochemistry in our brain. And interesting enough, in that part, they talk about how lobsters compete. And, they compete and they fight against each other for dominance, for selection of the females and everything else that goes with it. And they've got hierarchies the same way we do, which is fascinating. And a point that Peterson makes is that hierarchies aren't a social construct, but it's something that's just built into us, which I found fascinating. So now we're built, it's not even like we made this up. This is just part of who we are, which I find absolutely fascinating. But obviously winners walk around, they've got more serotonin in their bodies. They stand up straight. They have more of a presence. They, command more respect, where losers, they kind of query away. But just to get this going, is posture something that you would think about in particular? Throw your way down.
First of all, right, I'm going to throw a little curveball in here as well.
Go for it.
Because I've heard a lot of... this book is very controversial to a lot of people because a lot of people don't like Peterson and they then start to discredit the ideas and stuff like that. So for me, when I'm talking about this stuff now, like the thing about the lobsters as well, apparently, I don't know this now, we'll find out for the next one of these we do, but apparently that's been a little bit debunked in terms of lobsters don't have these types of hierarchies. Now, it's not the point. The point is in the chapter, it's the message that you take away from that that you can apply to your own life. So whenever I'm reading any of this stuff or like listening to any of these podcasts now, I'm like, how can I use that in my life? I like that. How can I use it in my life? Not, I'm going to swallow that whole idea and create that as law within the world I live in now and argue it to the point of death. So obviously with you, with the posture thing, I knew that would draw. It drew me to it as well. And it's the message behind it that I like, not necessarily the story. The story is a story. It's an illustration. Whether it's true or not true is completely irrelevant to me. Yeah. So when people push back against these stories and these ideas and debunk the lobster thing, that's a ridiculous fucking straw man. I think that's the correct use of straw man argument, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
But yeah, so anyway, that's just for everything we talk about today. That's how I'm thinking about it now. So do I think about posture and do I think about lobsters? I love lobster. Yes. And I think it only came to me through sport. Oh, yeah. And when I heard Peterson talk about it, that was the connection I immediately made.
Of course, winners and losers.
Jill used to say it to me all the time. She still says it to me, like, when I cross the line, my posture changes completely. And it's not like fucking throwing shapes or anything like that, but the shoulders go back, the chest comes out, and there's a...
Is that a confidence?
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge as well. I think it's a... Here I am. Challenge me, like come at me, brah, like that kind of thing. Yeah. I think it's that. And
you're going to war.
You're going to war.
Yeah.
And that mindset is familiar to me. That idea of okay, I'm displaying something. And the other context I recognized was like the nightclub scene and the posturing and and I was always interested, like, why do we do that? It's to establish that sense of dominance. Yeah. And some people do it in a negative way, and some people it's their way of trying to reinforce to themselves.
Yeah. What I find quite interesting about it is the way you see yourself. Yeah. You walk around, how you talk, how you speak, how you act, how you wear. It's how you see yourself. And if you've got that confidence or that kind of winning mentality, as you can call it, like the lobsters do, is standing up straight with your shoulders back. It just, and especially for a man, I think you should take up space, and be here and now, where I feel like if you cower away, you're constricting your energy. You want to absorb more energy. You want to give off more energy as well. Yeah. What do you think, Brian? Yeah. Any thoughts on it?
No, I agree with both of you. But the first thing I always think of when I think of posture is obviously what I do and help people physically move better.
Yeah.
Because the research will tell you that posture is bullshit. You know what I mean? It's actually not as important as people make it out to be. So I've just seen a concept that people are afraid that they are hunched over and that this is a bad position. So this automatically is a better position. But in terms of that kind of mentality of being big and being strong and having that dominance, 100%, I would definitely get that. And then this idea of kind of posture, it does give you that release of serotonin, etc. It's just changing your posture and the importance of it all the time, I just think is massive. And it does give you this kind of energy that is...
There is. Because I think if you're folded in, you're constricting your energy. Because a lot of people nowadays, like, we're dealing with an epidemic of people with poor posture. Like, people are constantly looking down on their phones. So
I'm going to be... and I would agree to a certain extent, right? But, like, for years, people were down reading newspapers.
They were, but they're not. They weren't doing it, excuse me, to the extent that we're doing today. Think about the average person spending 4 hours
yes and no.
looking like this.
I would flip that on its head and say people aren't moving enough. Like, this idea of kind of posture and static. Posture is not static. You don't stay in one posture. It's dynamic.
Yeah.
And the issue people have is they stay in one posture the whole time and they never move to a different posture.
Yeah.
So it's a movement issue, I think, rather than it being a posture issue.
Aren't they linked, though? I know what you're saying, but they are linked.
Yes,
like posture,
but
and
is posture an issue? I would say then, like it's because then people are like, I'm in it wrong.
So you just reframe it as a movement issue.
That's what I mean, because it's not actually a posture issue. It's more so that you're actually.
I think the issue is we're stuck in one posture.
Yeah.
If you're constantly like this, you could call it a movement issue because you're not moving enough.
But even go back to it then. So we're saying that posture gives you that kind of vitality of kind of being upright and being strong.
Agreed.
So I think, again, go back to movement or posture. If you don't have that strength within your body, you're not going to have that vitality.
Yeah.
So it's a movement, posture, chicken and egg thing, I think. Daniel?
I think, to keep it in the context of what we're actually talking about here, I think all of this, and this will underpin a lot of stuff I said today, the story that you tell yourself is so important. So how you hold yourself, now forget posture for a minute, because I also have a background in movement and all kind of stuff too. I think that aside, because I would tend to agree with you on that. I think it's the story you tell yourself. And if part of the story you tell yourself is how you sit, and it's because there was you've heard of somatic movement before, have you? Somatics,
yes.
and that kind of stuff. Colleague, good friend of mine, is big in somatics, and he speaks about it in like green light, red light, and the red light is hunched in, and it's fetal position, and it's fear, and it's protection, and it's all that, and it's the story you're telling yourself, and that contributes to the. It's not everything. It's not just because you have posture like this that you're going to be an introvert or anxious or anything like that, but it's part of the story you tell yourself. How you look, how you dress, if your room is clean, all these different things all contribute to the story you tell yourself. And because we're humans, the story we tell ourselves is projected to the story that other people read about us. So if I see James walk into the room and he's well presented and he's upright and the chest is out and the shoulders back, he's telling me a story, and he's telling himself a story. Now, that's only one part of it, because like the nightclub scene I mentioned, because you can tell people a story and it's all a bit of bravado and it's a persona if you don't actually believe that yourself. But that's that argument aside about like bad posture, good posture, I think that it's all part of this story. And if you're telling yourself physically this story that you're a little bit kind of scared and you're whatever about your movement capabilities, I think that's a negative thing for your mind. I think.
And Peterson touches on there's a psychophysiological loop. So however our posture is feeds back to our brain how we are. So there's that. I always mention like your posture is a reflection of your emotional state. Because if you're walking around caved in, it might be a sign that you're quite low in mood or possibly depressed. But if you're walking around, like I often think of Mr. McGregor, you know what I mean? How he walked around, you know. Yeah, exactly. The Billy Straw. Like he is walking around reflecting how confident he is. That's how good he feels about himself. And that's probably the prime example that I could give. It's like,
speaking of prime example of McGregor and Aldo. Remember, Aldo wouldn't look at him. He had his head down, and you could just see the fear in what he was
and like,
there.
Like a great thing with the lobsters as well, winners and losers, they focused on the neurotransmitter of serotonin, which is your mood stabilizer. It's how you feel about yourself. Great example. Aldo and McGregor. Aldo was cowering away, and I remember Joe Rogan saying Aldo's head was down, McGregor was looking up, he was like moving about.
I think this just became an episode of Fight Companion. Is this Joe Rogan?
Well, the whiskies are flowing. The whiskies are flowing.
No, but I think
I'm getting roasted already in this jacket.
Take off your jackets because you look massively overdressed, lads. What are you doing here? No,
I have to in a minute.
I have to say though, for both you, I think we're all on agreement here. Like the idea of like you can't take the body and the mind away from each other.
No,
the body knows the score. Exactly. I think that's what we're ultimately getting to here. So it's not the posture or the movement. The idea being that they're both one and the same mind and body.
Exactly.
And the impact.
And like you know, Dan, winners win, don't they?
Winners win, Jamesy. They win.
Winners win.
Winners win.
But with the lobsters anyway, when they won, their serotonin was much higher.
Okay.
Because they feel better about themselves. When the losers, they'd cower away. Their serotonin is much lower. But
and again, why this is an important rule is because even if you lose, you can still tell yourself a better story.
Yeah.
And even if you win, you can still tell yourself a different story. So not getting caught up in the thing is really, really important.
And would you notice when you obviously play a Gaelic football match and you win, would you know? Of course you notice. You notice difference in win and loss.
The difference for me, and again, I said this is going to underpin a lot of things I say, is the story I tell myself now, especially when I lose. When I lose, if I can tell myself the story that I gave my best effort and it was honest, and I was thinking of Damien the other day, like it was this quality work, was it a good, honest effort? Did I actually apply myself? Then the outcome doesn't matter as much to me. Not that it doesn't matter, but I'm not as devastated by it because I didn't have everything about myself and my identity pinned on needing to win.
Yeah.
I walk off as confident and as upright as I walked on if I know that I applied myself.
Yeah.
Whereas if I win and I know I didn't really apply myself, it's almost a hollow victory to me. And my body language will reflect that and I'll be a little bit more reserved and stuff like that. So, but I've only noticed this in my much older years playing football. When I was younger, it was all about winning. If I didn't win, I was a piece of shit. Fuck this. Oh, it's terrible. My week is ruined, blah, blah, blah.
And I just like to bring it back to some level of kind of us as males and masculinity, the importance of kind of being competitive and putting yourself out there in order to win. And Peterson would talk about it, that we're not always going to win. So understanding how to lose gracefully and making sure that you are clear. And that story you tell yourself, it is everything. But that's a difficult thing to do. When you lose and say, there's some kind of meaning of goodness in here, or there's a good thing that can come from this.
There's more to this than the outcome. And there's more to who I am as a person and a man than the outcome of what just happened. If I can tell myself that I've done all of the other bits. Like, have I been honest? Have I trained hard? Have I prepared? If I haven't done all that, then it's very hard to tell yourself there's more than winning or losing. Because it's all winning or losing.
I'd love to get your thoughts as well, because with the lobsters, obviously they're competing for dominance and hierarchies. I'd love to get your opinions on hierarchies and how you view them as well. And the reason why I asked that question, I'm sitting across the table from two very successful men in both their businesses. So how do you view hierarchies and going up the hierarchy, and is that something you've even thought about before?
Daniel?
You want me to go first? Another thing I read the other day, apparently there's no such thing as hierarchies in human behavior. I don't know if I believe that, but
you're debunking this whole chapter now.
Bullshit.
12 was a debunking Jordan.
Delighted James picked this one because I had a fucking prep. Hierarchy.
Rubbing your hands together.
How do I view hierarchies?
Like, do you see yourself as someone that's up a hierarchy of some sort? In regards
you
to
are with the football team.
In regards to the success you've achieved in life, so up until this point, it's like this is like a, this is a, we're literally in it right now, Dan, of the success that you've had.
You've created this.
You've created this, yeah.
I think part of this, a big part of this is that imposter syndrome that we spoke about before. So, and I've told you this before, I personally always struggle to see the steps I've made on the ladder because I'm so in it all the time. Yeah. All I see is the next step, the step I haven't made, as opposed to the steps I have made. It's a big problem with me, and I think a big problem with a lot of people
100%.
who run businesses, and even people who don't run businesses. It's because you're always looking at the next thing. It's the hedonic treadmill. Once you've achieved the thing, the next thing is the thing, and you no longer have that thing. It's why a lot of us get caught in this rat race for money and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely believe there are hierarchies. I definitely believe a lot of them are, as soon as I say this word, everyone's going to stop listening to the podcast, social constructs. But I believe there are certain systems and hierarchies designed to keep us in them and just keep looking forward and never looking in. Yeah. So yeah, I think that exists. Do I think there's hierarchy in human beings in general? I think there's a natural order of things.
There is.
I have personally experienced the conversation I have a lot actually. In most areas of my life, sport, family, friendships, business, any group, school, college, any groups I've been involved in, there's always a natural order establishes itself. So, and in my experience, you get about 70 to 80% of people who are just happy to be part of whatever it is and are happy to be led by a competent leader and are happy to follow and do an excellent job and apply themselves and all that kind of stuff. That seems to make up the bulk of most people. Most people aren't vying for leadership all the time, but there's maybe an internal war to do better for themselves, whatever it is, or a comparison kind of thing going on. Yeah, I've experienced maybe 10% of people are leaders, and I would view a leader as someone who's willing to actually lead, to sacrifice, to think of the group, to put the group first, etc.
And do you think they're born or they develop themselves to be leaders? Do you think this is a genetic thing where you're just kind of born to be a leader?
I think it's a bit of both. There's definitely people who are genetically gifted in terms of leadership. Yeah. They have more natural proclivity to be leaders, but it's definitely something you can learn. Do
you think that's nature or nurture? Do you think somebody's nature is their nature inherently from birth, like something like this? Or do you think it's a lot of it's to do with their environment that are
I don't really know. I think it's definitely an aspect of nature with people. There's certain people who are just born with a charisma, or they have but there's also a level of nurture as well. So, again, it's kind of chicken or egg thing for me, as long as you understand the power you do have to nurture it. You know what I mean? You're not just saying it's just all nature and that's it, or again, it's just all nurture. So again, the nature doesn't matter. So I don't know. I think it's both, but the fact that you can develop it, I think, is everything. What would you think, Jamesy?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wonder. I don't know. I think you possibly could be born with it. Of course, you can develop the characteristics and the personality of a leader. I've no doubt about that at all. But I think is there anything of a natural born leader that you just have a tendency to lead people? Because like you said there, Dan, some people are just comfortable just following the leader, and that's what they look for. They're looking for a leader.
Did they grow up with that, or were they born with that? You know what I mean? Is it what they envision in their environment, their parents, the surroundings, or were they born with that?
I have a funny feeling that people are born with it. Now, I could be completely wrong saying that, but that's what I believe, that like you are born to you're born to lead.
The best leaders would be born to lead.
I think so, and they know it themselves as well.
I don't have the answer for this one.
Yeah. No, and it's. I think
there's a lot more nurture. I think there's a lot more that your environment has to do with that. But I can't discount the fact that we are born with certain characteristics.
Yeah.
Like because I have kids and I look at the three of them, and they're not born. And everyone says, "Oh, I raised them the same." You don't, because when you raise your second one, you have a kid. You didn't have a kid when you raised your first one, so everything's different. But for all intents and purposes, we parent them the same. and they're different.
Yeah.
They have different characteristics.
Yes.
And I don't know, is that a result of the circumstances they're in? Because now I'm older. When I had my second child, I was 2 years older. I was more experienced with it. So I don't know, but I have a sneaking suspicion the majority of it is nurture and your environment, which is why...
You debunking something again, Dan?
No, that's my opinion. But
right.
like that's an important point for when we get to my one as well, is that the impact that the environment can have on you as you grow up.
Yeah.
And even when you're grown, will contribute to a lot of these characteristics and in an internal drive. And like a lot of these natural born leaders don't want to be leaders, but still have the characteristics. So like that's a hard one to explain. In order to say about like the best king is the person who didn't want it and all this kind of stuff. They just have those characteristics, and they tend to be very compassionate. They tend to really think about the group, and
people want to follow them.
People want to follow them, as opposed
That's
to.
a big thing.
I think I told you both about when I was did one of my psilocybin ceremonies. That was a big thing. I want to be the leader, and it was this whole story of the more you want this, the less you're actually going to be a leader. What you need to do is learn to serve people, and when you learn to serve people naturally gravitate towards it. And then I was like, well, am I just doing that because I want to be a leader? So it was this whole story about like, are you just telling yourself you want to be the leader, to be the guy? Do you want to be the guy? That's not a natural born leader for me. You've met all these people in your life. Like the people you're just naturally drawn to.
Yeah.
I can follow this person to the gates of Mordor.
I think you mentioned. I think you mentioned something.
I fucking love Lord of the Rings.
I think you mentioned something key there. Serving people, serving. Like
I think it's
if
key.
you're willing to serve, I think that is something that's embedded in a natural.
Well, I think that's a really authentic thing, isn't it? Because you can see someone's authenticity of wanting to help or do better, as opposed to just be a leader, as you mentioned, and that's an easier thing to follow because you're like, there's real integrity there.
There is, yes.
You're not just doing that, and I think as a man as well, that you can really be drawn to that integrity because like. I want to be better. So if someone is genuinely just from them living is better, it's like, whoa, that's really attractive. I wouldn't mind having that as well.
Yeah.
So I'll follow this.
And
track.
the masculine element, I like what you touched on there, Brian, is like a masculine man should be looking to serve other people. Like it's taking care of yourself first off, all well and good, but you should be looking to serve the people around you and just bring everyone up together.
Isn't that the case for men and women? And does women will say naturally say children, but like any good person is helping other people. And how good does that feel?
Of course.
Go back to serotonin. It's such a really good thing. I think that integrity is everything as well for that natural born leader.
Guaranteed.
I don't know what it is, or natural or nurture.
I think that's a phrase. It's a phrase. He's a natural born leader because it seems like he or she fits the mold so well. They must have been born with it. That's my question. Is like a lot of that possibly is nurture as well.
Yeah.
I want to get your opinion on something, gents, because it's came up in a few places on different podcasts as well, and it's something that's mentioned in that chapter. You may or may not have heard of it, the Matthew principle.
I don't think I've heard of this.
You definitely have, Dan. You've definitely heard of
Have
Chris
I?
Williamson. Yeah, he's talked about this one before. I'll rhyme it off anyway. So the Matthew effect is the name for a verse in the Gospel book of Matthew in the Bible. Matthew 25:29 reads, "For whoever hath," which means have. So for whosoever have, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whoever have not, for him shall be taken away, even that he have. So it means the more you have, the more you be given. The less you have, the more you be taken. What do you make of that?
I don't know.
I don't really understand it. If you can go a little bit deeper on it, sorry. Just
so basically what it is, so the more you have in life, the more that will be given to you. The less you have, the more that be taken from you. Does it make any sense?
Why did that jump out at you?
The whole, do you know why it jumped out at me? It mentions the word abundance there, and we've often heard abundance and scarcity, and it's a way of thinking. So if you think a certain way, if I think in abundance, more will be given to me. But if I think in scarcity, more will be taken away. And I just think that's so evidently clear in that little verse there, that like your way of thinking will draw either more into you or take more away from you. And that's that kind of, the polarity between the two. Either have more or more is taken away. And I just wonder in your own life, have you ever almost used that in effect, like believing that you, like this is why I think gratitude is so important. When you're grateful for things in life, you automatically have more. You feel gratitude doesn't come from a place of lack. It comes from a place that I have, a place of appreciation. Where if you say are not grateful for what you have in life, you're always this is a sense of lack and emptiness inside. Well, that's what I view that principle as.
That's really interesting. You explained that there. Two things pop up to me: investment and mentorship. Like
brilliant.
The more I invest, the more I get back.
Brilliant.
Mentorship kind of shows you what's possible, and someone is kind of doing something that I want to do. And there's definitely this idea now. Go back to investment of the kind of scarcity of like this cost this much, as opposed to seeing it as an investment. because the investment is giving me new skills and
Great
new ideas and new education. So I would definitely kind of resonate with that at that kind of level. Daniel?
You looked at me really intensely there. I don't have anything profound to say about this, but it's this abundance and scarcity mindset's really interesting, because as you listen to that, you could either take that, if you were in a victim or scarcity mindset, you could take that as like hopelessness, because I need to have stuff to get stuff. I don't have any stuff, so therefore I'm just going to be forever poor. I'm going to forever lack.
Yeah, that's the scarcity.
That's the scarcity mindset. So even just that one passage there, the way you interpret it is really, really important. I've learned this lesson the hard way. I'm still learning this lesson in business and trying to build and grow something. Because if you have this scarcity mindset or poor relationship with money or business or sales or any of that kind of stuff, you're doomed to forever.
You're doomed. That's a great way of putting it.
You're dooming yourself to forever sit in this position that you're in right now. Whereas if you literally just change the way you think about these things and change your perception of these things, all of a sudden you see opportunities everywhere. All of a sudden you see the value in what you're providing to these people. You see the growth that's possible and the potential, and all. It's just like a different lens. You're just switching a lens. And that's something you can actively do, but I think there's practices needed to do that. You have to develop an awareness, and you have to accept that you do have a scarcity mindset. Yeah. And I definitely did.
I think a lot of us do have these limiting beliefs around whatever scarcity.
It is a limiting belief, yeah.
And even you mentioned there about like business or whatever the hell it is.
Take
like
my jacket off while you're chatting.
But all those things, I think we all have them. So I think that's the difference of having quotes like that or having conversations like this that at least expand your awareness of potentially what's possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That it could actually be different, even though you have no evidence right now for it being different. Just the possibility of it.
Yeah. And Dan, listen, that was very profound what you just said.
Was that profound?
That was profound.
Can we clip that and put it on Instagram?
We will indeed.
It's always very profound.
TikTok love that. I just realised we didn't turn on. I hope the autofocus got my face again. It has. I'm going to put the light on here because we didn't have our lights on in the back.
Oh, for God's sake, the light's off.
You didn't wear. You didn't abide by the dress code. No, so you can't fucking say.
People listen to this podcast and they don't know why I'm underdressed and you are massively overdressed.
Oh, they're watching. Look at this. They're watching the podcast.
Basically, I don't have a suit that fits me.
I think my shirt might be overexposed.
The greatest news team that's ever existed.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
We can change. I got another quote for you boys. Well,
just blasting random quotes out here.
Blast away then.
Yeah, we can change who we are by changing the way we hold, move, and fuel our body. But that's not the quote. That's
kind of like your rule number one.
Yeah.
That's what I actually wanted to say while you were talking about it there. It's interesting because even if you don't feel great and you change your posture, you can feel better. It's that whole, it was a Huberman talking about that thing, you can't think your way out of a thinking problem. Like, go to the gym and you feel better. Move and you feel better. Change your posture and you feel better. And that could be linked with the serotonin release or whatever. I'm not 100% sure on that, but like, you do feel better.
I was just thinking about the importance of walking. It sounds crazy, right? But going on a walk changes your mood completely.
Yeah.
And I've been caught in that, like trying to work your way through a problem. Just go and be a bit active.
Well, Tony Robbins always talks about it, but just changing your state.
Change your state.
So like whenever like you're in a depressed state, like you're down, and then you can just do something physical to change your state. And we all know how good we feel after a workout or doing playing ball or something like that.
Doing a high rock session. That's the new thing.
That is a new thing, actually. You're changing your state.
You do them already.
I fucking do a lot of high rocks. I haven't done high rocks yet.
Yeah. So this is the last quote. Just to wrap up this chapter, it's by someone called Alexander Lowen.
Oh yeah.
And it's called The Language of the Body. Yeah. The Language of the Body. This is a brilliant YouTube channel.
Bioenergetics.
Bioenergetics, yeah. It's called, this YouTube channel's brilliant. You love it, Dan. It's called Academy of Ideas. Anyway, this quote as it goes.
That's a great YouTube channel, actually. Sorry.
If body structure and temperament are related, as anyone who studies human nature can determine, the question then is, can one change the character of an individual without some change in the body structure and in its functional motility? So we're linking activity and character together. There's one thing I'm very much interested in at the moment, and kind of preaching to the few clients that I have at the moment, is every time you're in the gym, you develop your character. If that's one thing, you can just view it as you're developing this person who's disciplined, who's willing to work hard, who's willing to change, who's willing to go out and seek discomfort to become a better person. I just think that's a great way. That's a great lens of kind of viewing going into the gym. You're remaking yourself. You're the marble and a sculptor at the same time.
I'm kind of changing my ideas around this slightly, right? Recently. I completely agree with what you're saying, and I would be an advocate of that, and I would do that in my life for the last couple of years. But this idea now of kind of doing difficult things because they're difficult if you don't actually want to do them, you know? I think deep down, like for me to do exercise, like to go to the gym is difficult on some occasion, but deep down, I do want to exercise. You know, like I have an inherent something in me going, like, there's definitely a draw for me going, although it's difficult to do, I know there's benefit for me doing it, and I do inherently want to do it, but not just doing it because it's difficult. Am I making sense saying that? Because I just think now
you must enjoy the challenge, though.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is then, I suppose. But basically, you see now it being peddled on social media, do difficult things, you know, and hop in the ice bath and do this because it's difficult. But if you really don't want to do it, you'll end up living a life just doing difficult things that you hate doing. Am I making sense?
Ultimate delayed gratification is no gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's several categories, because I think about this sometimes as well. Like Goggins obviously is the one that jumps to mind. There's categories I put this stuff in. Most of the difficult things I do are things that I actually kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
Once they're at least once they're done, I enjoy them or whatever. There's some element of it I'm like, I know this is good for me. But there's a small category of things that I think every now and again, even if it's something you don't particularly want to do or enjoy, it's good to be able to force yourself or train yourself to be able to do that thing. Because in life, the things that are going to challenge you are almost never going to be the things that you're going to enjoy. So, like working out, you know it's good for you. You know all the outcomes are net positive. You know everything about it is positive. It's just hard to go to the gym, and that last rep is hard. But you kind of all the positives are always there in your head. You're like, I know why I'm doing this. Going and doing something fucking outrageous that you're gonna be physically sore or tired afterwards. You can't initially see the benefits of it. There's a small place for that, I believe, in a lot of our lives, because at some point something's going to come along that's going to fuck with you. And if you don't have the capacity mentally to be able to handle this category of thing that there's no net positive for you can't see any positive of it, but you still got to get it done. I think there's a place for training that as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should just be doing all the things that are hard because they're hard.
And that's more what I'm getting at, because what you're saying there, I would agree with as well. Maybe I'm kind of going back to more kind of what you value. This idea of kind of hopping into an ice bath because that's the thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, do you really want to hop into an ice bath? Maybe you don't, you know?
Yeah.
But I do fundamentally agree with what you're saying. Like,
I don't know. That advice can be seen through two lenses. You're a guy that's already doing that, where someone that's never experienced that, they could actually build the mental strength by doing it.
100%. 100%.
And the mental
I'm not saying you can't. Yeah. No,
and it definitely it makes you more resilient to life as well. That's the way I often see these things, like the gym, the ice bath, meditation. It makes you mentally stronger. You need that to endure life, because life is suffering.
life is pain.
Right,
life is pain. Suffering is optional.
Suffering is optional, Dan. I love that. So profound. So profound.
What was it? The 2 hours we talked about that, isn't the first hour is pain, the second hour is suffering.
Yeah.
I can't remember how you stopped the second arrow. Do you kill the archer?
No, you stop the second arrow by stop talking shite to yourself is what you do. Yeah. I don't think that's a difficult thing to do when you're tired.
Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. I think that's the actual sentiment behind it.
Well said. We'll move on. So chapter 1 was
Chapter 1 was done. This is going to be a 9-hour podcast.
Dan, let's move on. Your confrontational topic.
My confrontational topic. Rule number 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Gentlemen, why do you think this might be confrontational?
Because people will say, how could I hate my children?
That's one, yeah.
And what would you have to do for you to hate your child? Like, they would have to outshine you completely. Would you not just be proud of them?
Not necessarily, though. It's like when you have children, you can realize, and people who say I could never hate my child is just fundamentally lying.
This is actually interesting, right? Just for context for your listeners, James, you don't have any children that you know of.
Well said.
I definitely don't have any kids.
You have 2 kids and I have 3 kids, so...
No, I don't.
But there's an interesting context here because you'll have a particular view on this, we'll have a particular view on this, and neither is necessarily right or wrong, just different perspectives on it. But so the first thing, hating your kids, that was actually an interesting point I didn't see coming up at all here, because I didn't think about it that way at all. But it's an interesting one. Just on that point, I don't think a lot of people hate their kids. I think the only situation in which people find it difficult or maybe have a level of resentment there around their children, which, to be honest with you, I've had a lot of these conversations over the last 6 months, and there are people who do harbour some resentment. It's not towards the children, it's towards the life that they had before they had children. And myself included, a lot of us, when we have a child, it's the first major challenge presented to us where we have to take responsibility and grow up, because life nowadays, would you agree, is pretty fucking easy compared to maybe what it used to be. And this is, for a lot of us, the first real, you got to take responsibility for this.
It's the ultimate form of responsibility.
It's a rite of passage where we should have had a rite of passage 10, 15 years ago. We don't have that anymore. So in a lot of our lives, this is the first time that there's something you cannot shirk this responsibility.
I'm sorry, Dan, that's really interesting you're saying that, because we're having kids at later life now as well. So that responsibility doesn't come to maybe 30, 35.
So you could have lived for 30 years and you've Peter Pan syndrome. Like, you're like, yeah, I'm a businessman, I'm doing my thing, I'm a man, I'm doing all the things, and all of a sudden here you go, pal, here's some real responsibility. Like, and I'm not saying people don't have responsibility or life isn't difficult, but compared to what it used to be, life is pretty fucking streamlined for a lot of us. You go to school, you go to college, you get a job, and all you're trying to do is like not break too many rules and just keep going. Yeah. It's fairly linear for a lot of us, not all of us. And boom, here's a child. Fucks your shit up. Your life is fundamentally changed forever. And there's a lot of friction there for a lot of people. So that can create some resentment. You do not hate your child, but you could resent and lament the life.
The responsibility.
So is it that they are hating the responsibility of the child, not the child directly?
The sacrifice that has to be made.
Having to take responsibility is a really difficult thing. And this is just the ultimate form of responsibility. So that's my bit on resentment and hate anyway. But why I think this is controversial is the word trauma is thrown around a lot nowadays, and there are a couple of different ways of looking at raising children. Fucking big sticker on this one. Not a parenting expert, by the way, just a parent. So everybody does this differently. I don't know if it's the right or wrong way, but if you look at someone like Gabor Mate, and his message is really centered around full expression, and any suppression of that expression is something that's going to lead to problems later in life, because you bottle it up, it creates behaviors, it creates spirals, you have addiction, you have all these different things, you have trauma essentially. So if you are someone who's creating really restrictive boundaries around a child, there's a risk there that you're going to create future trauma for that child. Model number one. Model number two, Jordan Peterson, in my opinion, what I get from this is, don't create a set of boundaries for your child so they can understand that in order to interact with the society that we've built, there's rules. You can't go out raping and pillaging anymore. Like, it's just not how it's done. And from my perspective, when I saw this rule, it's a positive thing, because if I can teach my child the rules of engagement while still maintaining a safe environment for them to grow and express themselves and learn and love and all that kind of stuff, but they understand what boundaries are, when they come up against those boundaries that exist in society, it is not something that's made up. They're going to come up against a wall. They're going to come up against a boundary. They're going to come up against a situation where there are rules of engagement with other people. Then they're going to understand what they are, and they're going to understand how to navigate them, because we've created that for them. We've taught them. That's our responsibility. If we don't do that and they live a free and easy life of full expression when they're younger, they're not going to understand that, and they're going to have a really, really hard time integrating into society. Now, why I think it's important is not because everyone has to like you and you have to get on with everybody. I absolutely don't subscribe to that at all. I don't get on with everybody. But you will miss opportunities if you don't have those skills. So my children will miss opportunities for relationships, friendships, jobs, whatever, just communities, if they don't understand those rules. So that's how I look at it, in a really compassionate way. I see, and when Peterson talks about this stuff, he cries. He's fucking compassionate. He's not saying be an absolute
he's not being a dictator
tyrant with your children and make them fit into society. Like, you know me and you know me. I'm not exactly your model citizen here now. Like, I've notions and ideas about fucking stepping out of line every now and again. So I'm not all about like mold yourself into something other people will like. But that's what a lot of people read about this. Rules, boundaries, strict, and make them fit your model of what the world should be. Absolutely not. Teach them what the game is. Teach them that there are rules and boundaries. And the only way, in my opinion, you can speak to this, you can teach a child that sometimes is by setting those boundaries. They have to see the boundary. You have to bang their head against the boundary. You can't just say, okay, my 2-year-old absolute psychopathic lunatic Jason is about to jump off this couch here. Just pause for a second there while I tell you about healthy boundaries. No, he has to learn by banging his head against the boundaries every now and again and going, oh, what's this? In a very safe and caring and loving environment. So the safe, caring, loving bit I got from Jill. Very lucky to have a partner who is not only an amazing mother, but a pediatric occupational therapist. So I'm going to have the cheat code. But yeah, for me, that's what I get from this. And the reason why it's controversial and people push back is what they interpret this as is tyranny. Make the child fit into the model of society, like force them against their own natural character and creativity to fit into what we want and put them in a suit and send them to work. So I think that's where the controversy comes. And I think, to be honest with you, it's missing the point.
Okay. What do you think, Brian?
I would agree, again, what Dan says, and maybe it's different because I have kids as well, but the importance of teaching your child values. And I think it's not only just teaching, like, I don't know if you said it there, Dan, but like, children really don't listen to what you say. They will only do what you do. And
they only follow your actions.
Yeah, the road less traveled. Remember that book I was talking about? And he talks about love being about how to show your children to be disciplined. And how do you show that? By being disciplined yourself. So the act is of loving your children is loving yourself. And that's kind of, again, what I get from this. So again, you're teaching your children these core values because you understand how the world works. these people don't. And again, if they're just left to their own devices, they're going to be unlikable. They're going to miss out on opportunities. And like, you're not molding them in a very, like, say, dictatorship kind of way. You're doing it in a way going like, I understand more of what this world is about than you do. And here are some ideas and opportunities that you can now integrate and try to see what happens. Yeah. We almost give them kind of a head start.
And what was the title of that chapter again? Do not
let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. See, that's why it's a bit controversial as well. And I kind of like this about Peterson. He words things in a way he knows are a bit inflammatory because they're very direct and blunt. If you dislike your children, if you are a reasonable person, and again, a lot of this is built on the premise that you're a reasonable person. If you're not a reasonable person, you fucking dislike them anyway because they've ruined your life. But if you're a reasonable person and you dislike a behavior in your child, question number one, which I had to learn along this path is, are they just annoying? Are they triggering something about me? That's question number one. You have to put that aside. If your child is screaming or shouting or jumping around and it's just pissing you off because you're in a bad mood or you're tired or you're underslept or you didn't go to the gym that week, you didn't do the thing, that's kind of a you problem. So that's step one. But step two, if they're doing something that you think is not socially acceptable, that's going to distance them from the people that they could be friends with or develop relationships with, I think, as you've said, you have the experience. They're a kid. And a lot of these kind of do-gooders forget that just because you think a kid should have full expression and be able to decide who and what they want to be, they're fucking 2 years old and they can't. They don't. But you have 20, 30 odd years of experience at this point. So it's your responsibility to use that experience and pass it along to your children. Okay. As opposed to just saying they are their own entity and they'll find their own path.
I'm getting a better understanding of this chapter now.
And it's also as well because Peterson talks about by the age of 4 that you are either socially accepted or you're not. So again, if you're not teaching these rules by the age of 4, potentially you're moving into relationships in school, etc. And kids don't want to play with you. They don't go near you. Teachers don't like you. They treat you differently. And then as Dan mentioned, then you go into like just life in general, like professionally, personally, relationships. It's going to impact you as you kind of move on.
Because if you're an absolute tyrant, who wants to be around you?
Nobody.
That is, this penny's just dropped me with this chapter only now, just discussing it.
But again, it's having children because you see it. You know, you see that from the reaction that a child has to you who you love. I've never had a love like I have for my child. And you go, well, that's not right. That pissed me off.
Yeah.
I love this child. I love this child.
Yeah.
If that's pissed me off and I love her and I would do anything for her, what are you going to think?
And that's why I say the first question has to be, has it just pissed me off because I'm a piece of shit?
Yeah.
Or has it pissed me off because it's something that would not be conducive to a good relationship going forwards?
Of course.
95% of the time it's because of you.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing of being a parent.
Yeah.
Because again,
it's mostly
the majority is you catching yourself going.
So it's like a mirror.
That's on me.
It's a mirror.
Yeah.
It's mostly, that's why this is really interesting. It's mostly not the child. Most children are really good. And most children explore their boundaries and will respond well to like a good, healthy intervention, good communication, which you're talking about now as well. 95% of the time it's you. You're pissed off, you're tired from work. And this is why it's really difficult for parents, like, because in the modern world, we're all fucking flat out.
We're all stressed at nines.
We're stressed to the fucking nines.
And sorry, particularly having kids, you don't sleep. Well, the one thing that lacks when you have children
it's the worst
is you
environment
do not
for this.
sleep.
It's the worst environment for this because you're underslept, you're stressed out about money and security and more responsibility. All these things are going on in your head, and then the child cries. Why the fuck is the child crying? That's a you thing, man. That's a fucking you. Children cry. That's the only way they know how to communicate. Like, and for me, Jill was 100% instrumental in this. She taught me this. She showed me. She's like, "You're being a dick here." And she wasn't having to go at me. She's like, "This is a fucking you thing. Like, what's wrong with you?" I was like, "Nothing wrong with me. It's a fucking kid." I was like, "No, it's not the kid. It's me." 95% of the time. But there is 5% of the time that's an opportunity for the child to learn and grow.
And so, genuinely, you 95% of the time you think it's a you thing, like that high.
For most of us.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that. I believe you're being triggered by something if you have a response or reaction. So like a really important thing, I'm just going to fix your mic there. A really important thing with them, how this is done is, it's like corporal punishment, right? Like slapping a child. So if you slap your child because you're angry at your child, that's child abuse. If you're used, now again, we don't slap our children, so I don't know why I'm using this example, but it's just a really extreme differentiation. If you are disciplining your child, maybe discipline is a better word. If you're disciplining your child because you're angry at something they're doing, that's terrible. You're in an emotional state. You're responding emotionally and you're fucking losing the rag. You've lost control. Big stoic thing, like it's all about losing control of your emotions. If you're angry at your child, you've lost control. That is not the time to intervene. It's not the time to say something, to shout, to slap. I shouldn't use slapping, but they're all in the same bracket. It's not the time to intervene. The only time you should do something like this is when it's conscious and there's an intent, and you can only do that if it hasn't triggered you. So if you're in a calm state and you recognize that they're doing something, and you're like, okay, well, that's not that bad. They're just expressing themselves. They're screaming a little bit. That's fine. They're upset. That's the only way they know how to do it. You're not going to do anything. But if they've done something that's really not acceptable and you're in a calm, non-emotional state and you intervene, for me, that's a good state to be in. And that's
kids need them.
Kids need that. And that's what I learned from jail. But if they see you lose the fucking rag, I'll use a personal example. We were driving to school the other day there, and Zoe and Jace were in the back, and they're so good. They're really, really good. And I never raised my voice, but I did. So we were driving down and they were fighting over some fucking teddy in the back of the car, and I said it to them 2 or 3 times and they weren't listening. I was in a bad mood. I was underslept. I was tired. I know that's why it was. And Zoe did something. I was like, sorry. And I shouted at her and they went so quiet, because I never shout. They went so quiet. And immediately I was like, fuck, I fucked up. So I got there, I got out of the car and I got down to my 5-year-old daughter. I was like, I'm really sorry. That I made a mistake. I shouldn't have shouted at you. That was my fault. I'm very sorry. And you know what? She responded so positively. I was embarrassed apologizing to a 5-year-old. I was like, I'm the dad. I made the fucking decisions. And for the first 30 seconds, I was like, fucking screaming and shouting, pissing me off. I was like, oh, you're a fucking dick.
I love that compassion, Dan. That's some
taking
level
me 35
of
years.
Thing, yeah.
35 years to learn to understand that. And most of the time I miss it. I don't get it. But that time I was like, that was a mistake. That was me being tired and responding emotionally to my child. And it sounds like, oh, Dan, it's the ultimate parent here. I make the mistake all the time. And I got out and apologized to her. And she was like, that's okay, Daddy. And she gave me a big hug. And she was in a great form. And I was like, I felt a bit better as well. I was like, okay. I was like, I got a little bit angry because you were shouting in the back, but I shouldn't have shouted. So now she knows that's not the response. If I get angry, I don't scream and shout and fuck it. So like I'm acting out what the right thing to do now as well. Now she knows that Daddy apologizes when he's wrong and all that kind of stuff. So like,
and she'll take that on board.
And she'll take that on board. So man, it's so nuanced. It's so fucking complex.
It's such a difficult thing.
That's a beautiful story, Dan.
It's so nuanced. It's mad.
Well, can I ask you a question, James?
Great parenting advice, by the way.
I'll ask
That's
you.
not advice, by the way. That's just a personal story. It's a story.
Yeah.
Well, just for yourself, because you don't have kids.
Yeah.
So what was the lessons or things that you had from this chapter in particular for when you read it?
I was a bit confused when I read it, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I wasn't understanding of it. Now it makes better sense to me what it is, like how you raise your kid, like you mentioned, the values that they have, and they kind of mirror back what you've been doing to them. The penny didn't drop with me before with this chapter. So now there's a bit more clarity.
What did it mean to you? Because you read it, like.
I read it. I don't know if I didn't.
It didn't
resonate with me.
Yeah.
Because the next question I was going to ask it to you, like fatherhood, like what is that experience of, even the first time you became a father? What is that experience like? If you can sum it up in any way.
Yeah, well, I'll take over here for a second because I'm going to get someone on my podcast talking about fatherhood. And
why'd you point at me?
Because you run my podcast, Daniel. Well, no, I found the initial first 8 months quite difficult. There was a bit of
first child.
My first child.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have 2 children. So my first child. There was a bit of a disconnect for me. And I look back now and it was probably like worrying about the responsibility. You know what I mean? Like definitely doing my best and wanting to do it, but just kind of being a bit overwhelmed with the whole experience of it all, you know? But then genuinely around 8 months, 9 months, it began to kind of change and turn. And Sailor is now 4 years of age. And like, it's just the best thing that like ever happened to me. It's a love that I just can't explain. And as difficult as it is, and it is really difficult, it's really difficult. It's just one of the most profound things you'll ever do in your life. Like it really is. It's just hard to explain.
And in terms of strength, the actual strength feeling of love is the most intense feeling of love you ever felt.
Yeah. There's definitely a vulnerability to it because this human who is just so innocent and so beautiful and again,
so vulnerable.
It's so vulnerable. It's so vulnerable. And it's your responsibility and you just don't want any pain or hardship to happen to this child.
Yeah.
And it does happen. And she's only 4 years of age. So again, there's plenty more hardship to come, you know? But then there's level of beauty there because again, when she says she loves you or she holds you, there's just this knowing that's just like, this is just amazing. Like it's just fucking unbelievable.
It's incredible.
It's unreal.
How do you view fatherhood, Dan, and even with your first child as well?
I've actually an interesting story about my first child, but I just want to say you have a particularly beautiful connection with your children because like a lot of people I talk to don't talk in that language.
Really?
I'm familiar with that feeling, but you have a very, very deep connection with your children because you talk about this all the time.
Yeah, but again,
and you light up like when
I struggled though for that first 8 months is what I think is a big thing to kind of understand as well. So
maybe there's not adaptation. Like it's
that's what I mean. But there is some level of adaptation to it. Yeah,
a lot of people,
I have a theory on that.
Oh, go for it.
On what you just said about Brian and yourself.
Yeah,
I think it's because you're very secure men. In a lot of senses,
you're gonna like my story, so
in a financial sense, a lot of men are stressed out, and I think with that stress, is fed off them into their wives, into their children. But if you're very secure financially, you got great stability in your job, you got a great future coming along. I think you feel.
I have another point to make, and
you feel secure when you have that security. This is something I'm just picking up on now, even before I have kids, which is further down the line. But it's like when you have the security in yourself in all domains of life, you can be fully present. You can fully love your child. But if you don't, you're constantly stressing about the next paycheck. Where's this going? Well, like you're on edge the whole time. But when you have that security, like things are going well in the business, yeah, things are good at home, playing well on the pitch, I'm doing well in the gym. It's just like you have ticked all boxes, so you can be truly present with your child and love them the way you both talk about with your children. I think it's absolutely beautiful. By the way,
go ahead.
You want me to go? Or do you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to go?
I agree with what you're going to say.
I don't think I agree with what you're going to say. Anyway, I have two parts to this. So I'll tell my story first. The 18 months, and I've spoken about this before, but the 18 months after I had my first child were the worst 18 months of my life. I responded really poorly to that responsibility piece. I know now that's what it is because I've thought about it a lot and I've talked about it a lot. But that was a massive challenge for me as a man. I wasn't financially secure. I'm still not financially secure. Business is a really, really difficult thing, by the way, and we'll talk about that in a second now. And I know sometimes from the outside it can look like a certain thing. Oftentimes on the inside it's not. But that 18 months for me was really difficult. It was the worst time of my life. Not because I had a child, but because I came face to face with you have to accept responsibility. And there was friction there for me, massive friction. And I spiraled out of control and all sorts of mad stuff. So that was really, really difficult. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me, both because I have a child and because it forced me to step up to the plate.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in a position where I'm stepping up to the plate constantly. And it's like I'm 35 years of age. I was 30 when I had my first child. First of three. I have 3 children. And that last 5 years have been the biggest developmental period of my life.
Because there's a sense of urgency there.
Sense of urgency, but there was a sense of absolute despair at the start, like combined with the pressure. So the pressure is one thing, right? The responsibility is one thing. The pressure, if you've got a child, you have to provide, care, keep them safe, all that kind of stuff. And then you've you over here. So you've got this absolute crushing fear here. And in my experience, it doesn't really matter how much money you make. And this is my experience talking to people, not making loads of money, talking to people. Pick a point on the spectrum. 20 million a year to 20 grand a year. It's the same thing. It doesn't seem to change. And you probably can speak this as well.
Yeah,
you know a lot of people in those spheres too. That fear doesn't seem to change. So yes, financial security is an important part of it. And it is something like, I like how Naval looks at this, like money doesn't solve your problems, but it solves your money problems. Yeah. So if you don't have that money problem thing, that's a big weight off.
And that's a massive weight off.
It's a massive weight off. But remember, when I had my first child, I wasn't here. I wasn't running the business. And it's, even now, like this is not a secure thing. It's a changing environment. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. It'd be more secure for me to go and get a 9 to 5. That'd be real security. If security actually exists.
There's never actually ever security.
If security it's an illusion anyway, but that would be more practically secure now because I have a regular paycheck and it doesn't depend completely on my business and the landscape and the constantly changing things, blah, blah, blah. But that first 18 months for me was absolutely horrific and it forged me into the person I am now. But it wasn't an easy journey.
No, and it's not meant to be easy. And it molded your character.
It molds your character, but a lot of people don't come back from that.
Yeah.
And we spoke about this earlier
Which shows great strength about you then, Dan, because you need a bit of praise there. No, it does. No, honestly, you need a bit of praise there.
I'll be very honest with you, like great support system, super environment, amazing family,
and also plenty of times, because I went through the same thing where like you think, can I get through this? Can I actually step up to this? Like you question yourself constantly going like, what the fuck? I'll never be able to do this.
Yeah.
In those moments. Because you look back now, like you look at men who have one child or multiple children, they're mad for drink, drugs, like they're falling back away into these things to distract themselves from the responsibility that is in front of them. Yeah. And I'm talking about like going back to millennia, not just today. Like we've struggled to find a distraction away from responsibility. And family and children as men is like the fundamental thing for that, you know? And you mentioned there about business as well. And like, you know, having like this financial, I don't know, for me, it's kind of a values thing. Like it's a values thing for me. Like fundamentally deep down, why I do what I do is for those that I love. And then like I want to have an impact in the world, but deep down for me, fundamentally I always want to have kids and now I have a family. They're all that matter. Yeah. And then that can be in my detriment because I can overwork, hence why I burnt myself out. And not because it's like, because you mentioned that you can never have enough, you know? So like, I just... And
100% agree with Brian. And to build on his point as well, my children and my fiance, let me set my children, don't know how much I make and don't care. Don't know what I do for work and don't care. All they know is the person that I show up. They don't even care about what I say, like Brian said earlier on. Am I there? Am I playing with them? Am I safe for them? Do I present? Am I present? Do they feel like when I'm around that everything is okay? It's the only things they care about. That's what they care about. And there's a direct response. And I don't know how you found this, Brian, but whenever I really focus on being present and like really being engaged with my kids, it's like they're different kids with me. They respond immediately. It's all daddy, 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 daddy. It's playing, it's love, it's kisses, it's I love you, daddy. It's all this, and that's a direct response to me. And when I'm not present, or if I'm on the phone, or if I'm thinking about emails, or even if I'm just a bit stressed, I can see it in them because all they're doing is picking up on cues from me. That's point one. Point number two, Jill doesn't really care. Now, practically, there's obviously concerns about money, like how we're going to pay our bills and how we're going to do the thing. But what she cares about more is, am I a supportive partner? Am I good with the kids? Am I present? Do I love her? Am I focusing on the important things? Do I have a set of values? Am I a principled person? Am I loyal? None of that revolves around money. But the major thing that comes up in all of our heads is money. Because it's a security thing for us, and we're driven to that, especially as men. I know women have a different approach to it, but I think that's the constant challenge we'll always have, is to remember what the people that we love are actually looking for. Because the reason we want the money is to have the security, to have the connection, to have the respect. But it's that connection piece. We can get that other ways as well. Now, I'm not saying money's not important. It's not what I'm saying. You do need that level of security, but the other stuff is what these people actually care about, your kids and your partners and stuff like that. That's what they care about. They want you. They want you happy. They want you present. They want you compassionate, engaged.
But for you to be present, you've got to tick off a few boxes.
You have to tick a few boxes, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's not important, but it's not the thing.
And I also would like to preface this as well, because I think it's important for any listeners, because I'm sure like young people are listening to this. Like what I try to do, and what you're trying to do with your business, for example, is you try to leverage that thing to allow yourself to develop.
Exactly,
yeah. So like, again, being a father, as difficult as it is, you understand now through adaptation that like, I'm kind of better here. I have to live a certain way. I have to sacrifice. Same with business, same with your body in the gym. So I think it's not necessarily a specific reason why you can do this thing well, more so changing the meaning behind it. As you were talking about earlier on. So it's not about like the meaning of me being a father means I can't do the bullshit I used to do when I was in my 20s. Or I can. But that's going to lead to a certain life and relationship with my daughter that I don't want to have. Yeah. You know, so it just means sacrifices have to be made that I'm willing to make for the love of my daughter.
So how would you classify fatherhood then? If there was like a one-liner that you could give, like what is fatherhood?
A one-liner, that's a big pressure. This has to be a good TikTok.
For the way I see it, the way you're talking about, it's the ultimate form of responsibility.
It is the ultimate form of responsibility, yeah. We often talk about business being a great tool for personal development. Fucking fatherhood's probably the best.
Yeah,
I think a big thing for me with fatherhood is make sure that you do genuinely want to be a father. Like I really mean that. When I was in my 20s, I used to have casual sex. Would you believe? I'd wear condoms all the time because I did not want to have a child with someone that I was not with.
Yeah,
I did not love. It was a conscious decision that I would never have sex without wearing a condom, and loads of my mates did not do that. Now, some of them did and some didn't. But like, I'm making a conscious decision here that I don't want to. So what I'd say is like, if you want to be a father, like make sure you want to be a father. You're not just doing it, and then like make sure you're making decisions for yourself that are going to allow your future self
like
live
prepare
a
for
way. Yeah.
There's no right time though.
No, you're never ready.
There's never
for anything. Well, yeah.
But it's true though. We'll go back to it and we'll take it. And this, I think, is the whole point. And I always have about principles. Same principles. It's the same principles though for business, for your body. Like again, people that reach out to you. I'm not ready. I'm not scared. You're never ready. Starting a business for you right now. You got client. I'm never ready. Just do it. Yeah. You're never. As a father, this is just life. It requires action and courage before you're actually ready.
Yeah, and happening. Yeah, love it. Anything else to round up with that chapter?
You asked me for one line. Best thing I've ever done.
Okay, brilliant.
Oh,
lovely.
Nice.
That's probably the line.
Encapsulated beautifully.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm just going to run to the jacks and then we'll move on to the next chapter.
Dan, pause everything back. Oh, wait, I'm fucking in here.
I need to go for a piss now, he said.
And we're back.
Brian's after pouring himself a quadruple whiskey there.
The greatest news team that's ever existed returns.
We're back, baby.
I love Lamp.
For Brian O'Loughlin's chapter. What was it, Brian?
Rule number 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping.
Brilliant.
And this actually was my most profound kind of chapter when I first read the book, and even maybe more so now. But kind of 2 questions that popped up as I put them here was going through the chapter was, why would you not treat yourself like you're helping yourself? And why do we treat other people better?
Interesting. It is interesting because I often think, when you think of yourself, it's like you're caring for someone else. You're this person that's caring for someone else. It's a weird kind of thought, but how else would it be? Like every other relationship that you have in life emanates from the one that you have with yourself. So why not treat yourself in the highest regard so you can treat other people in the highest regard? That's how I see it.
But that's why, for me, this chapter was so profound of why we don't actually do that, and the underlying reason.
I would say both of you would treat yourself quite well, and hold yourself in the high regard.
Yes and no. Sure, we always talk about it in terms of, say, even business and something. Like, oh, you're a great lad and you're doing great. It's like, yeah, if only you knew, fucking buddy. You know, like fucking deep down. So I think we all have this, because even Peterson talks about it in this chapter. We talked about this idea of kind of self-loathing, because we understand ourselves fully. We understand exactly what we do and what we don't do. We understand
you're always with yourself.
Exactly. So we just know fundamentally ourselves better than anybody else. So we just know what we're not doing deep, deep, deep down. And you might not see it, and it might not even matter, but internally you know it yourself. And that's just something that you can't get rid of or kind of take out of yourself.
I get that point, but I'm coming at it from the sense of looking after yourself. I know there's certain things maybe you should be doing if it's in regards to business or other things, but in regards to looking after yourself, like fully, in regards to your health, your fitness, your vitality, do you not feel that's something that
yeah, but again, go back to that chapter, because he talks about the idea, like the biblical story of Adam and Eve, and the idea of shame and what they've done and sin. And fundamentally, that's all in us. We're all sinners.
Yeah.
And again, we know of the sins that we have made. And you may not know of the sins that I have made. I know. And that's where the self-loathing comes.
Okay.
So if I know inherently and no one else knows I'm a bad person and you think I'm a great person, that's even worse. Because I'm actually a bad person. Or I believe myself to be
and you've got that
a bad person.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
so to act yourself or righteously or do... because you know yourself inherently that you're not doing it. And that's why he talks about in this chapter. It's all about like people prescribing drugs to their dogs better than they would themselves. Like I just couldn't believe this chapter when I first, I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
What do you think, Dan?
I always struggle with this concept of taking care of yourself like of someone else. And I think you've actually described it really well there. When I read the chapter and I listened to Peterson talk about it, it kind of helped me understand it a bit better. The reason I like to care for other people is because I don't know how shit they are. And I know how shit I am as a person. I can see the darkness in me, but all I'm seeing in other people is the suffering or the persona or whatever. I don't really see the depths of the darkness in them, so it's easier for me to help them. But I've always struggled to view myself as somebody else. It's easy for me to do something for you or for someone else because there's no real commitment there. Because like I'm just doing this thing for you, and it makes me feel good. I'm a sound lad and all that kind of stuff. If I have to do that for myself, maybe it's a sense of I don't feel like I deserve that type of attention, or I think a lot of the time, in order for me to be able to help myself, I have to tell myself another story. I have to tell myself a different story. A lot of us, and I found this true with me for years in my life. There's a story I would have told myself about the type of person I am, who I am, and I think I told you this before, James. I always hated being fitness tested. I used to be one of the fittest, strongest, fastest guys on the team. And that's the identity I built for myself. So as I got a little bit older or faster, fitter, stronger guy came along, if I didn't ever test myself, I could still tell myself that I was. Because we were never tested. So there's no proof otherwise. I had the proof that I was, and I had no proof that I wasn't because I never tested myself. So in order for me to look at myself as somebody that I could help, I'd have to really look at all of the flaws and go past the story I'm telling myself. And I personally believe we all live in this story we're telling ourselves of who we are. I am a corporate lawyer. I'm a great lad. And we don't we don't want to look inwards. We don't want to go into that shadow because that's a fucking scary thing. So I think maybe that's why I struggle with this idea. I'm afraid to look at myself as someone worth helping because if I look at myself, that's a fucking scary thing to do. So I've always struggled with this, and hearing you speak there and listening to Peterson speak about it helps me understand why I'm resistant to it a little bit better, but it still hasn't helped me do it. I still don't look at myself as somebody.
Well, I would disagree with you until you don't help yourself. I think what you do, like we all do, and I do it myself.
I help myself, but do you know what I do? I do it intellectually. I know going to the gym is good for me, so I go to the gym. I don't look at myself as someone I want to help.
You love yourself.
No, I don't. That's not the story I tell myself. I do it because I want to be a better person. I do it because it's ego. I do it because it fits the mold of who I'm telling people that I am.
You do also have goals and aspirations, though.
Yeah. And I want to be fit. And I want to be healthy. I want to be better for my kids. So there's loads of positive reasons why I do it. But the one reason I don't do it is because I'm looking at myself as someone that I want to take care of. I'm not doing it to be nice to myself. I'm doing it for all these other reasons. I think about this a lot because I really do struggle with this, looking at myself like someone I'm trying to help.
But I think that this is why this
but I still do the things.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm trying. Yeah,
I still do a lot of the things.
That's why this chapter. So I think a lot of us.
It's a mindfuck.
Yeah, but a lot of us have the exact same reasoning and the same kind of mindset. Because I don't really kind of resonate with Peterson with this either. But he talks about why people do this as well is because humans inherently are evil. So look at history and look what people have done. So as a result, then people then go like, well, "What's the point of life? People are fucking wankers."
What's evil?
Well, killing, or look at world wars or whatever people have done. But just look out throughout history, and people have shown themselves to be evil, and as a result, then people have self-loathing for humanity in general. Never mind themselves. So hence why they find it difficult to look after themselves, because as human beings, we're just inherently looking after each other, and it's fucking, what's the point here? What's the meaning? Am I making sense?
Yeah. I just think you've no choice, no matter what, to take care of yourself. Like, you think about it, like,
but so many people don't. So many people don't.
Yes, that's good. It's a great point. Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking from my own view.
No, but the vast majority of people do not take care of themselves.
Actually, do you know what? Because
why is that?
Let's actually ask Jamesy here, because you do think differently, and I've noticed this the first time I met you. You think differently. Your brain is wired differently. So how do you view self-care? How do you view why do you meditate? Why do you do these things? Give me now. I want an emotional answer, not an intellectual answer. You know what I mean? Don't think about it too much. Just tell me.
So why do I do what I do?
Yeah. Why do you meditate? Why do you train? Why do you do all these things?
Well, the reason why I do it, I think it all comes back to self-love, and because it's so cliche, but self-love is so connected with self-discipline.
So you love yourself.
Yeah, and it sounds very egotistic to say that. But the way I view it is like, I'm taking care of this person, which is me. Like, it's like this. It's like I'm talking about two different people. I'm talking about myself here. The outside looking in, I'm like, I'm taking care of, I should do everything. Like, I eat healthy, so, I feel good. Like, I work out, so I feel better, so I'm better for the people around me. It's almost like, I often see it, huh?
It's for the ladies, James.
For the ladies, definitely for ladies. Well done, no doubt about it. But, like, you do it so you're a better person for yourself, but then you're a better person for the next person you meet, and then you're a better person for the other people around you. And it has that butterfly effect, is that when you take care of yourself, you can become a better person for everyone in your life. And I think you do it, Dan. You definitely do it. But it's interesting the way that story that you tell yourself is like, you don't view it in that sense. How I view it is just like, it's for everyone else as well as me.
Yeah, of course. That's the solution.
And intellectually, I do exactly that, because I often draw these circles, and I talk about the campfire and all this kind of stuff. And if I am a better person, every single person that comes in contact with me, like I said earlier on about my kids and all that kind of stuff, they're all better as a result of me being better. So there's a sense of duty for me there, but it's still not me looking at myself like someone I want to take care of.
It's just an interesting view.
I've no empathy for myself, zero, and like that's a problem. And you've pointed that out.
I'd be similar. I'd be similar. I think you're a little bit on some aspects, but I have a similar kind of neurosis as well in that regard. Like, I'm not viewing myself, although I'm doing these things, and at the same kind of outlook, but internally maybe a little bit different as well.
Like, we're all doing the things.
Yeah.
But again, it's the story.
Yeah.
My story isn't.
It's so
for
different.
Me.
Yeah.
And now
and everyone has got a different view of it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think the whole point of this then, because what I wanted to go, like, the reason this stood out to me was this idea of the 100 people who are prescribed a drug.
Yeah.
A third will never fill the prescription. Half of the remaining 67 won't take the medicine properly, or will miss a few of the doses. And this is what I'm saying about you. Like, we look at like obesity around the Western world.
Yeah.
People don't do fundamentally what they know they should do for themselves.
So but I think it's because they don't care and love themselves.
But
that's what it comes back to. If you truly cared and love for yourself, you would take full responsibility and look after yourself.
That's all in good saying
in the highest regard.
But how do you do that? How do you genuinely love yourself? To inherently feel that. That's what people...
It's by the actions. It's by actions.
Well, again, go back to what we were talking about earlier on. It takes courage and action before you get the result. And that's the hardest part for people to do, I think.
Do you know what the nice thing about this is? Even in the mindset that I'm in, that I'm not looking at myself like someone I'm responsible for taking care of, I'm still doing the things because I know. Intellectually, I know. Logically, I know.
Yeah.
These are good.
But in an emotional sense, as well. Because you...
Yeah, emotionally, yeah.
I would say, obviously, you feel a certain
way.
You
feel better.
Yeah, you feel better.
You're a man that's invested in your health, and I know you've got blue blockers at home.
I do have blue blockers.
Do you wear your blue blockers?
I do wear my blue blockers.
You see, you
love yourself.
You're taking these steps to improve yourself and have yourself running in a better sense.
Yeah.
And even in regards to your health.
I'm doing loads of the things.
You just don't view it in the
I don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
And again, to my point at the start, like for me, I'm not telling myself that story. But again, I don't think that's necessarily a problem.
I don't think it's an issue either. I just think it's
just interesting. Yeah. And the example I always use is, am I helping this person because I'm going to feel good about helping them, or am I helping them because they need help? It doesn't fucking matter.
No.
Because you're helping them and you feel better. Everyone wins. And but there will be some people who'll be of the opinion it doesn't count because you're only doing it for this. And I'm like, I see your point, but I disagree with
it.
But
maybe then viscerally, there's a bit more stress in you. And maybe that's not a good thing long term because you're not inherently doing it from a place of loving yourself.
That's where the integrity part would come in.
Yeah.
So are you doing it from a place of, I really want to do this for someone? Or are you doing this for, I'll do it for them, but I know how good it's going to feel in return?
Well, I definitely,
that's like conflicting.
I definitely know that I do a lot of the things I do now because I want to show up for my family. But also, I definitely know I do a lot of the things I do because I feel better as a result. So it's both. It's definitely both. And
it's like this idea of being, Chris Williams talk about being motivated or being brave, doing the thing when you don't feel like doing it. You're showing bravery just through the act of actually doing it. So whether you feel brave or not makes no odds.
Yeah.
You're doing the thing, therefore you are brave.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't inherently matter once you're doing the thing.
And to your point about like anxiety and stress, I definitely think that was one thing it could help me with. If I had a little bit more empathy for myself, I wouldn't feel so much stress all the time, but it wouldn't change what I do. I'm still doing the thing.
Yeah.
I do the thing most of the time. Not all the time. Most of the time I do the thing. But I would like to maybe feel a little bit more, you're doing a good job.
Of course,
I don't feel like that a lot.
And you know what, though? There's two things that I
maybe
think
that's a great driver, though. That would be driving you forward.
Which is actually a brilliant point as well.
I would
Because that
agree.
can be something that can be used to drive you forward.
That's what I'm going to say. But then I would question then long term whether that's a good
balance
thing
is important.
Yeah, because again, you keep succeeding or doing good things you don't inherently like it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But there's two things that pop out to me. Because you do think differently. I think a huge practice for you has been meditation.
Oh,
I think that's been a game changer for your viewpoint of yourself, of how you think, of your awareness.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ron, because I think going back to the whole point of self-love, I think a lot of people don't love themselves because they're not even they're not aware. Like if you have no awareness to take care of yourself, you're never going to do it. Because it's the first part, like you have to notice who you were, the thoughts that are in your head, how you feel. A lot of people don't have emotional awareness. And that's one thing that's meditation I always preach about has helped me so much, is developing that emotional capacity, that emotional awareness to actually view myself as someone I'm taking care of. People are just, they're just acting out of instinct the whole time. They're hungry, they'll eat bad food. Like it's just, I think awareness is so key.
And then I'll take it back then to what worked for me is psychedelics.
Which is another form of awareness.
Exactly. So again, I've been able to gain awareness around psychedelics. And again, even just use business or fatherhood, other avenues that you can use to try and gain more awareness of who you are and what you want from life. But again, it's a difficult thing because we are naturally going to go back to our old way of living, our old habits, our old commitments, just naturally. And trying to catch yourself.
I'd love to just elaborate on psychedelics because I haven't tapped into them all that much. But how do you view yourself when you take them? Do you view yourself like you come away from yourself it's almost like...
Yeah, again, it's very individual, what I would say. And then the different trips can be different experiences, you know?
Yeah.
All I'll say is that for me personally, I felt things viscerally. So actually, I'll go back to my first time I ever did ayahuasca. I loved myself the first time ever. Like I felt a love for myself that I thought was Danielle.
How did it happen?
So I took ayahuasca, and then what happened was Danielle, who was my missus, kept coming and going in my kind of mind, this kind of dream state. I was afraid to let her go. And I thought if I let her go, she'll be gone or something. And then I was like, eventually I was able to accept that she can go. Once she was gone, this pink glow burned out of my heart and just shut up. And it was love, which I thought was love for Danielle, but actually was love for myself. But I felt this love that I just can't describe the sensation, the feeling, and the visceralness of what it was, but it was an acceptance and love for myself. That potential I hadn't felt for the previous 30 years. I don't really know. And I wouldn't have said previously I didn't love myself, but then maybe that was the case. So psychedelics give you this experience, but kind of means fuck all if you don't integrate afterwards.
Of course, yeah.
So that's kind of the idea. But and like meditation or go to speak to somebody, the happenings happen in between the sessions or the thing you're doing. You know,
it is the instigator of it.
Yeah, the insights are great and the awareness is great, but what are you doing then when you go back to life? You know, so psychedelics is just a tool that I use, similar to meditation, to get that level of awareness.
Yeah, awareness. That's the key word. What do you think, Dan?
I think I wish I hadn't mentioned hungry or psychedelics and fucking starving. But I asked me about psychedelics. Yeah, I think the simplest way I can describe my experience with psychedelics is like this curtain. It's like it pulls back the curtain and it shows you. The curtain is your ego, your behavior, the story you tell yourself, the narrative, all that kind of stuff. It pulls all that back for 6 to 8 hours, depending, and shows you this is possible. It's possible to feel this level of empathy and connection and compassion and love for yourself and other people. And then towards the end, it slowly pulls the curtain back over and it goes, right, you know that's possible now, but it's behind this curtain. So what are you going to do to break down that curtain? And that, for me, that's how I look at it. It's like you said there, the thing itself, it's just a tool. Because again, a lot of this stuff gets pushed back. Yes, I absolutely do agree that a lot of people use psychedelics like any other distraction, like alcohol and drugs. It's just an escape from the real world. I don't look at them that way. like we're having a drink right now. Myself and Brian were saying we didn't drink anything last year, and
it's a celebration now.
It's a celebration. We have a whiskey every month to celebrate.
Intent behind what you do.
We celebrate our friendship. There's intent behind it. It's a tool. It's a social lubricant. All that kind of stuff. I'm very, very comfortable with this particular substance. Very comfortable. There's no danger right now. Well, there's never no danger, but there's very little danger right now
because you've got awareness around it.
I have awareness around it and around myself, so I'm not in that position. Psychedelics, similar kind of a thing. They are a tool that can help generate a deeper level of awareness, but the real work comes afterwards. And like anything, like this book, like this conversation, like anyone who's listening right now, this is not the thing. This could potentially be the trigger for the thing, or the platform for the thing, or the springboard for the thing, but it's not the thing. The thing is you every single day. Deciding that something in this conversation or this book or this podcast or this psychedelic journey has inspired you or awakened you or brought some level of awareness. Now the job is, can you actually action that? And for me, that's where the real magic is, because like on my experience with psychedelics, it's pretty fucking magic. Like, but the real magic comes in when you can see that starting to change the fabric of who you are as a person, like your interactions. So like I fundamentally view people differently now. It's fucking weird.
From psychedelics?
I view them as like other versions of me.
That's that oneness, isn't it?
Well, that kind of soul level.
Exactly. You are a version of me, and it would, like examples.
That's a very spiritual thing, then.
Big time.
And that's massive, because that's one thing I think I've learned from meditation as well, is that it's pure compassion, but you view everyone in the same light.
Yeah.
Like the way I am with you or with other people is the way I am with myself. So it's that feeling, like that mirror almost image. I mirror how I am with myself with other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny then, and decisions you're making now to kind of head away and stuff and be surrounded by people that you want to be surrounded by, because based off how you're admitting and what you're doing.
He's leaving.
That's true, actually, yeah. But is it,
to be surrounded by the people that he wants.
But do you know it'd be quite funny though, when this podcast
other two people I'd rather be surrounded
by the way, when's this podcast coming out? Like, is it going to be soon?
Whenever I get it over to him. 6 months time.
Well, it'd be interesting when this comes out and then you're going to be away, and kind of just how your life kind of dictates and kind of goes based off who you're surrounded by and the environment you're in and stuff like.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know when you're over there, people are going to come saying, "Oh my God, you know Brian and Dan? Can you introduce me?"
I'll try.
Time to fuck off.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's a roundup. That's my view of psychedelics. Really powerful tool, as you said, to generate awareness. Just another tool. Meditation is one, writing is one, conversation. Like the most common powerful tool I've used is doing this right now. It's conversation. It's talk. Not necessarily even podcasting. Like we would go for walks and have conversations. You guys train and have conversations.
Yeah.
Sometimes me and Jill are sitting there after dinner and we'd be 3 hours deep into a conversation. Like that stuff is the real power.
Sorry, can I just say that then? That's really important. So this chapter, rule 2, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. I think a brotherhood and friendship is kind of everything. Yeah. Certainly is being for me.
I love that
to have the conversations that we have, to have that someone looking from the outside in who kind of understands where you are and what you're doing, as allowing yourself to be open, honest, and vulnerable. I think is everything.
Yeah,
it gives you a level of awareness again to go like, well, Jesus, maybe I'm actually being a bit harsh myself, or maybe I'm wrong.
Feedback.
Here,
That's what men need as well. I like the way you touched on that. Brotherhood. I love that term. I just love that term because it's so lacking nowadays. Like men, can they openly speak about what's going on in their lives and get feedback from other men, or even kick them into line, because sometimes we're out of line. I love that feedback that you get, and you need that brutal honesty, because if you don't have that, you're just kind of what's the crack? Everything's good. It's like, no, be straight with me now. What's going on? You know what I mean?
Like if there was a situation where we decided that there was a set of rules to a certain engagement, and then one member of the group didn't adhere to those rules. It's important to give good feedback.
Yeah, but people would say you're allowed to break the rules as well. So a rule breaker.
You break the rule, you broke the trust. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's important to be giving you feedback.
Don't play the rules.
It's important to give you feedback.
So sorry, can I finish off then this chapter? Because what I'd like to say, because you already do it, James. You mentioned it. Like, so what's the solution to take responsibility for yourself? And ultimately, it's like believe that you're worth helping. And I think that you mentioned meditation, I mentioned psychedelics, like gym, business, being a father. There's many avenues I think that we can use to help ourselves go, well, actually, I am worthwhile. I know if I look after myself, sailor is better. So like I can use that as a tool.
It's a rippling effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But also to understand, I think, to give ourselves empathy, which I'm not very good at personally. I'm not very good at giving myself empathy. When I make mistakes, which is what I'm going to do, or when I burn myself out, or I do too much, or I do the wrong thing, to be like, that's okay, you're human, you know, and that's something that I'm trying to work at more. But I think like that's why I'm fundamentally fucking in awe of you. Never mind your age, but just to have the awareness you have and this kind of self-love, it's not normal.
Yeah, I think I was born empathetic though. I think,
Really?
and then I just think the meditation's brought it out of me.
Okay.
I think that's what it is.
I just don't think it's very normal.
Because I think empathy is definitely, it's a feminine, I think it's more feminine. Obviously women are more understanding. But yeah, I maybe I've developed it. Maybe I have developed it, but I think I've always been quite empathetic. For myself and for other people as well.
I think especially when people listen to this podcast, if they are young, like lad in their 20s, it's a very difficult time because you're questioning yourself, who am I? And you look at social media, it's all kind of bullshit. So fair play to you. And that's why you're leading the way you are leading.
Appreciate it, Ron. Thank you. Anything else from the chapter, Dan?
No, I think Brian's done an excellent job there.
Oh, thanks. Didn't get dressed right, but at least I get a chapter.
I genuinely think he did a good job because that's one that challenges me all the time. I don't align with that, but this conversation has helped.
Yeah. I love these conversations. I have to say, I've enjoyed many conversations we've all had.
We could have had these conversations forever now, and the cunt's leaving. He's unbelievable.
I'll be back. But yeah, that's one thing I suppose, even about podcasting, and just in general, just the level of attention, in a podcast.
Did you seriously didn't pick up your phone?
You were talking to
fucking
you.
attention.
This is people don't show people.
As he said the word, the level of attention.
Podcast.
You pick up your fucking phone.
He's talking to you.
I looked at purpose. But just in general, though, how great is that? It's human connection.
Yeah,
that's what I'm a big believer in. Is that deep human connection that comes through conversation because you can.
Well, you know what?
I love one thing Pearson says. Sorry to cut across your point. Is we speak to each other to organize the thoughts that are in our head. And imagine never getting the chance to do that with someone else that you truly confide in and that you can trust as well.
That's why social or what do they call it? Solitary confinement is such a fucking punishment for us.
Yeah,
that's why it's such a punishment.
Well, just going back to that book, like the reason 12 rules of life for me, I think fundamentally changed my life. This idea of kind of chaos and order, like the idea of that life being chaos and that we have to bring order to it.
It's chaos. An antidote to chaos.
Oh my god, it says that in the book. But that was, I think, like that was one of the principles that fundamentally changed my life with this book.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable.
The balance of the two. So we're going to do another round. We're going to go around once more. And this is
a bit shorter than last time.
Yeah, this will be a bit shorter, but we'll sum it up a bit quicker.
Is it Monday yet? No, it's not quite Monday.
But it's a chapter we don't know that we picked or some part of Peter's.
I'm interested in this actually.
That's why I was checking my phone, dickhead.
Well, he hadn't even told us we're onto that section yet. You were on your
timed
profile.
You timed it perfectly, Brian, because I was talking about
Bumble.
Always ahead.
Grinder.
Dan, you can kick us off.
I can kick us off. Right, so do you know what might be interesting? Do you want to guess which one I picked?
Ooh.
Have a guess. We won't take all day doing this, but have a little guess at which one I picked.
I'm not going blank.
I'm going to go rule 9. Assume the person you were listening to might know something you don't.
It's hard to say that I wouldn't pick any of these rules because I would have picked that one, but no, that's not.
I know what it is because I think it might tell the truth.
You fucking got it.
Do you know why? Because I picked the same one.
Did you?
There we go.
No way.
And I had a feeling that when I picked it, I was like, this is going to do the same thing. But actually, go ahead. That's really interesting.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I picked. So the actual rule, I don't have the fucking full rule written here. Hold on. I don't, for people who are listening who have not read the book, and can you keep talking until I can actually, it's number, you have it there, I have it here anyway. Tell the truth or at least don't lie. So even in the title, it's interesting. Tell the truth or at least don't lie. So why I picked this one, again, wasn't something that initially just jumped out at me because initially it challenged me, because what I found through reading this chapter and thinking about this a lot is that I do tell lies. And I tell quite a lot of lies. And a lot of them are white lies and a lot of them are mistruths and a lot of them are misdirections. And my take home from this is the reason I tell lies is to make my life a little bit more comfortable.
It's easier, yeah.
My life is a little bit easier if I tell these little lies. It makes my life a little bit easier. So, obviously Peterson has his whole reason why you don't want to tell lies, and I like some of them, and I have some of them here, and I'll go through that as well. But for me, my takeaway from this was that if I have to live a life where I'm doing my best to tell the truth, what that's going to do for me is bring up all of the areas in my life where I don't tell the truth and challenge me to do something else about it, other than taking the easy option, which is tell a lie.
Yeah, because the truth is difficult.
It's fucking hard.
Like if you
isn't that what Peterson says? The idea is that it's going to bring you on an adventure that is not necessarily an easy ride, but an adventure.
So here's a practical application of that, right? So in the job that I do, I produce podcasts and stuff like that. So I have deliverables for people. There's deadlines and stuff like that. So what an easy lie for me would be is if I didn't meet a deadline for a client, I could make up an excuse and I could say anything. I could literally make up anything. And what that would do is get me off the hook and give me more time to do the thing. If I challenged myself to do this for 30 days, it was fucking impossible. I didn't even complete the challenge because there was lies I was telling I wasn't even aware that were lies. And when looking back and go, I actually failed the challenge and I couldn't even do it for 30 days. But for me to not tell the lie meant I had to find another way to achieve the goal. And the only goal was to try and get them the thing on time. So there was no other way, or tell them I made a mistake or that I didn't do the thing. So I had to ring up a client or text a client and say, I'm really sorry, I didn't get that done on time. And I couldn't say, because the fucking dog ate my homework, blah, 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 because of me. I felt like shit. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel like shit anymore. So now I just have to find a way to get the work done on time. And I can see how it makes you become a better person. Because that's one practical application. All of the other areas in my life, rather than tell a lie to make it easier, I now had to figure out why I wanted to tell the lie in the first place. What was I trying to avoid? And how do I get that thing done?
It's normally something lacking in yourself. Like, because
it's always something.
It's always.
Also, I love it. And Peterson would say it's habit as well. Like, you've done it for so long.
And that's a great point.
Until you actually realize, going, I actually lie a lot here.
Yeah.
And until you go, fuck me. And then it's a habit that you just kind of fall into.
Yeah.
And it feels comfortable
Really
because it's
comfortable.
what you do. And when you do the opposite, fuck me, it feels terrible.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep doing this, telling the truth. I'll just fall back to this thing here.
Yeah.
It's fucking mad.
I say to Jill all the time, I'm an excellent liar. I was like, that's not a skill I'm proud of.
I think everyone is.
I think everyone is.
No, fundamentally, there's no way that even you're saying there about clients and stuff, and I've cancelled sessions, etc., and you just make excuses because it's like it's just easier to not do the thing and rather than tell
Did
the
you ever
truth.
lie to me to cancel a walk or something?
Probably, I don't remember, but I'm sure I did. But Joe, can I just? I know you've more points.
No,
there.
go for it. This is a collaborative one now.
Because sorry,
Jesus Christ.
apologies.
Sorry, listener. You didn't pick the same one, James, by the way, did you?
No.
Okay.
Because my point was, and Evan, you're saying there, I fundamentally agree with, but actually, what I got from that chapter was that you end up lying to yourself. And so you end up doing things you don't want to do. You end up saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to.
There's nothing worse.
And I'll go back to why I burned myself out over the last few months, because I'm doing things that deep down I do not want to do in any shape or form. Yet fundamentally just still doing them.
So that's you lying to yourself.
You're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
But you end up playing this character or living a life that is like, this is so removed from who I actually am.
And you're so frustrated with yourself.
But it's not even that. I think the worst thing then for me is that I just keep acting on the fucking thing. I could keep doing the thing until my body goes, fuck off, man. You can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
So like that's what I got from that chapter, was more about lying to myself. Although everything you're saying, I agree with as well.
Yeah, that's actually one of the most impactful points, I suppose, that I got from Peterson talking about this, was the real consequence of lying. Obviously, there's consequences for other people when you lie. It's not great. And it's really hard to establish real relationships and real trust with people on something that's building lies. And like, you hear all the relationship advice always comes back to communication, honesty, and openness. So we all know that. But it is so true. But it's a really, really hard thing to do. But ultimately, it's a degradation of you as a person. You're dissolving.
You're less than.
You are less than.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
So you're actually, the worst thing you're doing is you're hurting yourself by lying.
The reason why I thought of that, for whatever reason, was thinking about masculinity. And every time you lie, you deplete that masculinity a small bit more because you're not being honest. Because a masculine man would just tell the truth, wouldn't he? That's just how
he wouldn't care the consequences.
He wouldn't care.
He believes he's in integrity, and he's willing to say this is fact.
Them
higher
traits.
And he'll take responsibility for the consequences of the actions.
Exactly.
As opposed to
and
not
go back to
taking
Peterson, by the way.
Because think of like wimps. They lie all the time because it's easier. And you know you're a fucking rat. Like you're
true.
You've no spine, you've no backbone at all. But someone like that's, you know.
But I think fundamentally that's why I love Peterson. Like, as much as I wouldn't agree with everything he says, like, he's not afraid of telling the truth that he believes is the truth.
That's why he's so admired.
Yeah, that's what but
that's the sign of a true leader as well.
Exactly.
Someone that's willing to stand up and say what's literally on their mind. And look, how much do we love him for it? You know what I mean?
But to take back to your point and my point, like, I actually, until we were getting ready for this, I didn't actually fundamentally realize that chapter, what I took away from that was me. I'm less than. I'm actually ebbing away myself by doing these untruths.
It's a great lesson to learn.
Yeah. But literally the last kind of 3 or 4 days, been like, oh my God, no wonder I feel terrible, or no wonder I feel lost or confused, or I can't actually act, because it's like, you're not living with any kind of truth for yourself.
Yeah.
That's
to
crazy.
live your truth.
I was looking for the word there that he uses. Erosion is the word he uses.
Erosion.
It's an erosion of the self. And a lot of the time, because lying has that, it's like everything, that initial comfort, that immediate gratification, the fucking eating the chocolate, that initial feeling, and the guilt comes afterwards. Like the lie initially gives you that comfort. And to the point we spoke about earlier on about like discomfort and doing hard things and all that kind of stuff, developing a tolerance to that initial discomfort is beneficial in the long term. So developing a tolerance to, like, that conversation with me and a client, I didn't do it. Now, I don't want to be tolerant to that, but what I want to do is I want to observe that discomfort and appreciate the fact that I can not feel it in two ways. I can lie and feel good in the short term, but in the long term, I'm eroding myself, like Peterson says. Yeah. Or I can deal with the short term discomfort, which is doing the thing, which is obviously I'm lying because I haven't done the thing because the thing was uncomfortable for me. Like it got in the way of my social life, or got in the way of, or I had to stay up a little bit later to do the edit, or whatever the thing was. So again, developing a tolerance for that discomfort gives me long term. What's the opposite of erosion? You're building yourself up.
Deposition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's more deposits of goodness,
and that sounds really much more empowering as well. Like you're actually acting on that, and
you're in control of that. And you decide, by making the hard decision. And to the point we made earlier on, that's not necessarily something that feels good. That's not something is.
It's difficult. It requires courage.
It requires courage.
And action, and you're not necessarily ready for it.
Yeah,
and because you're going to hurt someone else, but in the process of hurting them, at least you're honest with yourself.
That is a huge point, because that was the next level I was going to take this to. Whatever about in work with clients and stuff like that, in a relationship. A relationship is a really hard thing. A romantic or friendship or family, whatever that relationship is for you, it's a really hard thing to be honest with somebody, because the chances are, most of the time in my experience, that person is going to take that as a personal attack. And you're not giving it as a personal attack, but it's taken as a personal attack.
That's so true.
And it's very, very, very hard to do it, knowing that they're going to... James,
we felt that
we've had that.
We've had that.
When
I was a full-time editor for Dan.
By the way, I think that's one of the hardest things. A professional, personal relationship.
Yeah.
I have it with Rob and the coach as well. It's a really difficult thing. Because you're trying to be sound, and we're sound, and we're mates, and it's good, and we like each other. But there's a professional element, and things have to be done. And
there's a big takeaway with that, because we felt that between ourselves, Dan, in regards to when I first got editing for yourself, it wasn't up to scratch. And Dan would say it to me, and I took it as a personal attack. I remember that day.
And I knew saying it to you were going to take it personally.
But it just made me become better, and I'm glad he said it to me, instead of trying to cower away from the situation and then something further down the line. Because when you're with someone and you know something's up and they're not just being straight with you, or you might have done something wrong and they didn't put you in place for it. It's like, that's worse.
Yes.
That's worse, because I know there's something here, and there's something, and it's almost we can feel that misalignment.
That's what Peterson talks about. The more honest you are, all of a sudden your word has more meaning.
Yes, of course.
So what he says then exactly, because it's like, well, he's always honest. So I know whatever he's saying here right now is like, okay, I can take it as more fact and more reality, because he's.
And then you start to realize that person is not saying that thing to hurt my feelings. They're saying it because it's the truth. And I have to give props to James here as well, because it was literally like 48 hours later, he came back to me and he was like, okay, perfect, let's do this. Let's fucking do this thing.
And we resolve it straight away.
Immediately, which is really, really fucking hard, because I can't say the same thing when people come to me with feedback. I still will react emotionally to that. So and understanding that that's the dynamic of human beings makes this so hard to do in, like, especially romantic relationships as well. Like, you're saying something to your partner and it's not received the way you intended it to be received, and you knew that was going to be the outcome, but you say it anyway because you believe that this is the right thing to do, because you're being honest.
Man, that's what it is.
But I think
because you're a fucking man.
But that is a funny one though with relationships, which I've kind of got as I got older, is that, like, you realize that relationship requires work. And requires honesty and truth and conversations that are really difficult to have.
But it's a very shallow relationship, if not.
I know, but I look back when I was like 26. I had a breakdown of a relationship of 7-8 years, and like I remember thinking at the time things just fizzled out. But you just stop being honest and truthful and actually working on the, because I was too immature, grand. But like, that's what it is. And any relationship is going to fizzle out until you start putting work into it.
Did you just call James immature? Because he's 27 now. Are you 27?
27 now.
27, yeah.
And he's also single, so he's very immature.
But anyway, yeah.
Was there anything else with that?
No, for me.
Any other points?
I'll quickly scroll through these,
Go for that.
just in case we missed something. The psychological impact, truth.
Could I say something actually? Sorry.
You can, of course.
Because the reason I really like this as well, a way forward, basically, how to act on truth was to have a vision. So basically, have a vision for your life, and the idea is like, brilliant, we know where we're going. So it's so clear now what I have to do. And if you don't do it, so they always say trust and courage are the starting point of all transformation. So
trust and courage.
And you know that as a coach, if a client is not honest with you or is not doing the work, they will not change, and you can't help them. No matter what information you have or what great platform you have. So it's like, if you're not going to be truthful to me, forget about it. You know what I mean? So having an aim and where you're going just makes it so much easier to go, are you doing the work or not? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A final interesting caveat to this point, right? And I knew it was in the way that this is written as well. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. There are certain situations where potentially telling the truth, where potentially being silent is better than saying something. As in, you don't need to tell the truth. You at least don't lie. So if you're asked specifically for some feedback or some input on something, don't lie.
Yeah.
Don't lie then.
You can ease the blow.
You can say it in a kinder way.
You can say it, yeah.
And that's the moral obligation to have as well, is if you actually care about this person, for example, when we had the conversation, I care about you. So I didn't come in and say,
Thanks, Dan.
this is fucking shit.
Yeah.
I was like, look, we'll talk about a few of these things. But the whole outcome here is I want to be better. You want to be better. I'm learning. You're learning. Let's fucking learn together. This is the outcome. So my intent behind the conversation was really good for both of us.
Yeah.
There was no part of me going in and going, fucking James.
Yeah.
I was going in and going, this is a great opportunity for us. I know this could be interpreted a certain way. So let me deliver this in a way that gets the message across, but it's a collaborative thing, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So there's a certain time for that. And there's also a certain time where the truth could potentially cause harm to somebody. And I think maybe...
Is there an example there of that? Can you give me an example?
I don't know if there's a specific example that he gives, but I'm thinking of an example in a relationship where if somebody is going through something or struggling with something and you know the answer or you know the truth that person needs to hear, but maybe they're not ready to hear it. So rather than going in and delivering the fucking hammer blow,
Yeah.
you just keep that in your pocket for when they're ready for it. Do you know what I mean? And if they come to you and ask you, you can deliver it in a way that's compassionate and all that kind of stuff and understanding. But there probably are times. So that's what I get from the at least don't lie. So it's not like, because I can imagine the person who takes this literally is going around just fucking
roasting people,
oozing truths across the fucking universe, going around saying you're a piece of shit, you're too small, you're this, you're fucking that and all that. Sometimes, and actually, do you know what? This is not a lesson in this book, it's a lesson I'm really learning. A lot of the time, you don't have to have an opinion on everything, and a lot of the time, it's better to say nothing. I don't have to say things on everything. No. I know on the podcast I fucking just run my mouth all the time.
It's okay to say I don't know or I don't have an
Not
opinion.
even that. It's just okay not to chime in. Sometimes it's okay not to chime in on all this shit. And that at least don't lie bit for me.
I'm just laughing because three of us on a podcast talk about a book.
The three of us listen to what we're saying. Put this in your fucking ear and listen to it. But there are probably situations where not lying is the shout instead of telling the truth. So if they ask you, don't lie. But you don't need to chime in. That person maybe is not ready to hear what you're trying to say to them. You know what I mean? So a bit of compassion and awareness, as you pointed out, James, is important in this as well. So yeah, that'll be context for that.
I love that.
Right, James,
does that summarize it?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's funny that we picked the old.
Do you want to see if we can guess James's one?
Yeah, go ahead.
You won't be able to guess him.
Okay, now I'm going to eliminate the 6 that I thought it was. So it's not going to be this one because that's too obvious.
Okay, I'll just get straight to the point. I took a line from the book. Can't remember off the top of my head now which chapter it is, but it's about encouragement and the importance of encouragement.
Interesting.
And the reason why I took it, right? And it's one thing I realized when I was training people is that, and Peterson says this, I don't know what chapter it is, Dan. Don't know what chapter it is. But he says the power of encouragement is just ridiculous because people receive it so little in their lives, in their daily lives, especially the older we get. You know, when children are younger, they get praised the whole time. Praise. The older you get, people never receive it. And there's a quote, there's a line in How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it's by an actor.
Dale.
Great book. Good old Dale Carnegie. And there's an actor, and he's a quote, and then he says, there's nothing I need more than my self-esteem being nourished. And it's just, when we receive praise, how good does it actually feel? But the older we get, no one gives us praise for what we do. No one tells you how good of a job you're doing in here. No one tells you that, no one might say to you, you've changed, like you've literally helped transform someone for the better. We don't receive that the older we get. It's just, it's gone completely. And we just need that more than anything else. And it's a line, I can't remember what chapter, you'll kill me.
Is it the skateboarding one now with the kids? Don't interrupt kids when they're skateboarding.
I can't recall.
Well,
You'd be going through it. But just the power of encouragement can transform people. And how I've witnessed it myself was training people and just seeing, like, I'd give it honestly, of course, but seeing how it just light up their whole world. Just small bit of praise, that small twinkle of gratitude for them, change them completely. And you probably realize because you're both in businesses where you're, interacting with clients all the time, when you give them praise or encouragement, it's like you're transforming the world completely. That feeling that it gives them internally is like nothing else.
Yeah, and I'll go back to it as well, just based on what you said last time, but kind of being truthful as well. You are being truthful with the encouragement. So it's not even that you're saying this just to rise someone up.
It has to come from a genuine place. It can't come from a place of trying to, people know when you're being fake. That's just how it is. Yeah,
but that's why I think it's a bit sad then that people don't get that externally, because I think the reason you're giving good praise, number one, is because it's necessary. They've done a good job. So this is what actually happened. It's truth.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it's like we all want to be better. So we want to have an environment where we're encouraged to be acknowledged for the work that we've done, because life is difficult. You know what I mean? And I think again, go back to the conversation we're having here now, or being surrounded by people that give you that level of encouragement from a place of authenticity. It's like, Jesus, this is great. Like it really fuels you to want to go and be better.
Great super scenario. Fuels you. You literally get such a boost. I don't know, you probably received it too, Dan, in your time, whether it be football, whether it be podcast. When someone praises you for something, you just have this feeling of wholeness or just this excitement inside, this energy that courses through you. We
did an exercise, and I won't go into too much detail because it's kind of like a sacred circle thing, but we did an exercise with the team where you would write, everyone would have a sheet, and you would move to each person's sheet and write down something about that person. Oh, very good. So everybody would write something about everybody on everybody's sheet. And when I read what was written about me, I was crying. I broke down in tears. Like,
can you give me some words or what was said? Like,
I won't break the sacredness of the circle, but it was really deep and profound, and
deadly.
It was it was like the ultimate praise, and it wasn't a praise like, oh, great right foot or anything like that. It was like it was
genuine character.
I have a great
great pair of hands.
Great pair of hands.
You have a terrible right foot.
Terrible right foot. It was something that I could immediately recognize as genuine.
Yeah,
and it was because there was no discomfort from people having to look in the eye and say something in front of.
And I was gonna say, just because it's written on a piece of paper, that
be
is
a bit more honest.
Yeah,
that's felt on an almost deeper level again, like letters of appreciation or
powerful.
Powerful.
That's
what I'm saying. Like, encouragement is powerful. Like, you change someone's life by encouraging them and showing it genuinely how, and giving them an example how they've done it, change them completely. Their self-esteem has risen tenfold because of that.
Just as you're talking there, because what kind of pulled me out of my kind of funk over the last few months is like looking externally and kind of helping people, you know? So try to take the focus off yourself and like encouraging other people or helping other people. I just think it's a great thing that you get great satisfaction from, they get great satisfaction from, and then together there's a level of connection of being like,
there's this energy that's exchanged that brings you closer together as well. This is not all voodoo shit. I'm telling you, this is for real.
No, I don't think it's voodoo shit.
And like I was saying, I've experienced firsthand.
I have to find what chapter that's in, because I like it, but he talks. Peterson talked about this constantly though, about how people need such little encouragement, but once they get it, how it does genuinely transform them.
Yeah, I remember reading it, going, Jesus, that's deep.
No, it is brilliant.
I can't remember off the top of my head. Dan's going to do.
And have you had like your own experience of this?
Yeah, well, how I came across it originally was when I started training people. I was like, man, you're putting the effort in here. You're look, we're improving week on week. We can see differences here, whether it be photos or you can lift a certain weight. And just when I was looking at them, I was going, I could see them light up inside. I was going, this is crazy. This is like magic.
Yes,
it's literally like magic.
Yeah, because I think you're really acknowledging the work that has been put in, and you've done that yourself viscerally. You've actually done the work.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it constantly or not, you actually have done it. And for someone else to acknowledge that, it's just.
And you know how it feels. I bet you've been praising your time as well, Brian. And especially if always when it comes from a person that you respect or in whatever regard you held them in, it's like, Jesus, I fucking.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm doing, and then it's almost like a motivator.
But you know what? I think it's a bit of an identity shift potentially as well. Like when you are praised by someone who you respect, it can really shift your going like, Jesus, fucking, I am that person, or what's possible now for me. I never even saw myself as this thing.
And the reason why no one receives it.
Yeah.
Think about on a day-to-day basis, no one was receiving any place.
Why?
Because people aren't giving them. Because people aren't looking deep enough to acknowledge them for something they're actually doing.
Is there a bit of scarcity on people, maybe?
It could be, but people are so caught up in their own head that they're not going to acknowledge someone else.
I have an input on this one, and it's the idea of brother wounds, and this is very male specific. And actually, just as a bit of a caveat here, I don't think there's a book for men. I think there's lessons. Will be interpreted differently by men and women. And that's an important point. It will be interpreted differently, but I think these rules are applicable to everybody.
Sorry, to go back to that, the reason I think the vast majority of men read this book or consume this content, it's for men and women, like 100%.
Yeah. The fact that men consume this content, I do think there's a big gap there to be filled at the moment.
I would say I feel like he speaks more to men though, overall.
I don't know.
I feel like we can say that as men because he speaks a lot to us.
And also, we were all there in the tree arena.
A lot of women.
A lot of women.
Yeah.
There's a lot of women.
I think it's all down to interpretation.
A lot of men.
Yeah. Okay, Jamesy.
At least I always know when James has got a zinger as well. He has the face. He's got James got a zinger coming here. On the
brotherhood wound or something.
The brotherhood thing. Men are really, really slow to offer praise to other men because we view that as putting them ahead of us in the hierarchy. And if they have it, we don't have it. And that's a scarcity mindset. Yeah. And this idea of brother wounds as well. And again, I always take the stuff with a pinch of salt. Someone told me this concept of brother wounds before. Every time we were in contact with another man.
Can you explain what brother wounds are?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say before you interrupt me. Every time we're in contact with another man, there's a potential for that man to in some way take something of ours or supersede us, or we see them as a challenge to us, or we see them as ahead of us in the race or the game or the ladder. He makes more money, he's got a nicer car, he's got a this, he's got a that, blah, 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 blah. And that is a wound for us. And this idea was brought kind of really deep, even in groups of friends, where you be in a group of friends, you're constantly comparing yourself to the other men in the group, naturally enough.
Even competing to some degree.
And competing.
Because there's hierarchies, Dan.
Because there are hierarchies that do or do not exist. But even simple things like the jibes and the banter and all that kind of stuff, depending on how you perceive that, will be taken as a wound. So we're wounding each other constantly, this idea of brother wounds. And we're very, very slow. And I know there's a fact for me, because I've been very slow to give praise to other men for a long time in my life due to insufficiencies in myself. Because I feel like if I give you praise, it's taking me down a peg. And that's a scarcity mindset as well.
That's just how you perceive, or that's your perspective.
Again, it's the story. It's the story you tell yourself. Okay. Yeah. So
and would you be more inclined to give praise now?
Way more,
because you're in a better place.
Way more, because I'm in a better place.
And you've also again got that praise, and you've been surrounded by men who give that praise as well. I think you got that experience.
I've learned that from other men now as well. That it's not always a challenge. I don't always have to compare myself to other men. And this will ring very, very true to the men listening to this right now. In your friend group, it is extremely likely that you and everybody else in that group are constantly comparing each other based on how much you earn, what job you do, what car you have, especially.
Men are very competitive. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and there's an element of that can be healthy.
Yeah.
But as you progress in life, it becomes very, very unhealthy because you isolate yourself. You're by yourself. We don't have the tribal thing of we're all hunters. We're all going out together. We all have a common shared purpose.
I think
we're competing.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I think that comes back to a mentality thing. Like, if you can have more, why can't I have more? That's the abundance mentality.
Mindset,
where scarcity is like, oh, he has more, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even offer him a compliment.
There is some level of value, or I think as men, that we're bringing something of value to life or to this thing. So if both of you end up bringing more value, I feel less than.
And the key is, what do we now interpret as value is your paycheck.
Yeah. And loads of different things, but a paycheck, your body, fucking social media followers, bullshit, whatever. But, it could be anything.
But arbitrary stuff.
Yes.
Whereas before it used to be, what can I bring to the tribe? And if we all collaborate, and I know some people hate this tribe fucking comparison, but if we all collaborate,
it's ingrained.
We're going to bring home a more bountiful hunt.
Everyone's better.
Everybody's better off. Yeah. Whereas now it's actually the opposite, because if you're in the average environment for a person nowadays is you're in some sort of hierarchy, company structure or something like that, where it's competitive. There's one promotion for 20 lads.
It's more narcissistic because you're thinking alone.
All you're thinking about is your own mortgage, your own life, your own, like Sebastian Junger talks about this. It's very, very isolated. So your drives are all individual. They're no longer for the group. So now you view everything as a fucking challenge. If he's getting the car, I don't get the car. If he gets the promotion, I don't get the fucking promotion. So it's just this wounding thing constantly, and you're being hurt. And what do? You respond by, I'll take him down a fucking peg or two. I'll get the nicer car. I'll fucking have a go with him.
Yeah.
I'll show him.
Yeah.
And it's just this constant cycle of negativity. So it's very, very difficult. So I believe that's why a lot of us are very hesitant to give that encouragement, that praise, and we're not used to getting it either. And especially then if you throw in, if your parents weren't particularly encouraging.
I think Irish people are poor at it. I think Irish people are not great at giving praise.
No, but I think it's important as well, though. I think, especially with us being in our 30s, I think as you get older, you understand yourself more, what you value more, and you end up kind of going down routes that are more of who you are. I think in your early 20s and even 20s in general, people can be a bit confused because they're playing the game of social media or externally. Not that we don't play the game, you still get lost in the bullshit game, but you are clear about kind of what you want. And I think that's unraveling that more and more as you get older.
And with that security that you have in yourself as the older you get, you're more willing to give praise.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's true experience, as you mentioned there. Like you only because you've got it from men who you look up to, going, Jesus, thank you. And as a result, you want to give praise to other people because these people you look up to have given you praise. And you're like, Jesus, who am I not to give this other person praise? Because these people who I respect are doing the exact same thing that I should be doing.
Yeah.
The experience is everything, I think.
Brian's significantly older than me, by the way. He said we're both in our 30s, so
you're 35 and 37.
That's a lot.
And you look 47, so go away with that.
We'll let the audience judge.
Okay.
We'll get a poll going.
I'm not dressed as nice as you,
James. It was correct. 50% chance I was correct. It's either in Rule 10, be precise in your speech, or Rule 11.
How do you know?
because it says when Peterson talks about encouragement and communicating encouragement to other people, it's referencing be precise in your speech or do not bother children when they are skateboarding.
I'd say be precise in your speech.
That kind of. Although, but they could work in both. Really, they could work in both. But I like that. Yeah, both of them.
Anyway, give more praise. Sorry, just a final point on that. If you are a person who gives more praise, you're proliferating that because the person's going to receive praise and be more likely to give praise.
What does proliferate mean?
You're kind of adding to the momentum of that particular thing. So you're adding to the amount of praise being given in the world because you're giving praise to somebody who's potentially
you're building momentum almost.
You're building momentum for him. So if you give praise to a young man, they're more likely to give praise to other men.
Yes.
And hence go back to
knock-on effect.
Investment and mentorship and surround yourself with good people like it is. It's Jesus, man, it's unbelievable. Like
it definitely is. Gents.
Is that it?
What a conversation.
We're done.
What a conversation.
How long was that?
I haven't a clue.
We've got two timers and neither of them are on.
It's
got to be at least 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
I would say we started at about 20 to 6, so about 2 hours.
Well, whoever listens to this at the very end, fair play to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Joe, thanks for being here.
That was class. Cheers, Jamesy.
I absolutely loved it. Listen, just want to express my gratitude to the two of you because two men that I hold in the highest regard and have had so much time for over the last while and have had massive impact on my own life as well. So thank you so much. And thank you for this conversation as well. It's been beautiful.
Gentlemen.
I've actually really enjoyed this.
Yeah, so
and fair play, you were a fantastic host.
Thank you.
Not easy fucking talking to a lad in pink.
Learn from the best.
Give him some more praise. Quick, give him some more praise.
You're a gent.
Thank you. Gents, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. All the best.
Boom.
Boom.